Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I am audible. Someone please confirm.
Yeah, Namaskar, sir. You are audible.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah. Okay. So let's wait for a couple of minutes for other participants to join. And in the meanwhile, if you have any in general specific questions, so you can basically go ahead.
Sir, whereas coming to the review of literature, so many people, I heard from so many people that someone is saying follow some formula and some other are saying some formula.
Mhm.
Like normally we used to write a review of literature in previous days, copy pasted, right?
Right.
Then after once I attended a session of a review of literature, the
Mhm.
professor said is you need to read that review literature and whatever you understand write it in your own way. And
Mhm.
we have so many literatures, right? So
Mhm.
what he said is you need to connect one literature to other literature. Say for example, X wrote something about HRM. So
Mhm.
in connection with that, so we need to add in this way, he said. So we don't understand, I mean, in what way we need to follow. We need to write in a like a paragraph manner, or else this connection, how we need to write it, sir.
Okay. So the second approach, which basically the other professor suggested, that is actually the correct approach. So you should not be just like directly copy pasting it, and you should not be also directly paraphrasing it in your review of literature. Right. So your review of literature should be basically you may get information from many of the research papers, and every
Yeah.
research paper will not focus on only one specific item. So there will be multitude of items which will be surrounding it. So pick out only those things which are basically going to be relevant for your work. So their arguments either in support of your work or their arguments which is basically contradicting your work. So you can pick up those individual items and then basically you can like put it up in your literature, and it needs to be in your words, that is for sure. And
Yeah,
mhm,
thank you, sir. One more doubt. What
mhm,
happens, say, for example, I have taken some others research review of literature
mhm,
already. They precised from the previous one.
mhm.
So
Okay.
even if I want to take it, I need to precise something like whatever I
Right.
feel. The size of the literature maybe goes down.
Right.
Of course, we can add some more, but how much it fetches? Is it a correct
uh,
way or else?
so it's not a like it's not about a correct way or wrong way, but it's like a smart way of doing it, right? So if somebody has already done it, so let me go ahead and try to bring in some information directly from there. So let's say if I'm working in a particular area, let's say corporate governance is one such area where there are a lot of papers which are all about review of literature in that domain, right? So why do I need to individually go and check all those individual papers when I already have a review of literature given to me, right? So I would prefer like going through the review of literature, which may be just one paper, maybe like about 40, 50 pages paper or 60 pages paper up over there. And I'll try to gather more information from there. Now, the question about the size of content that you are going to get into, right? So what you will have to figure out is that that is an easy way. Everything has been put up to you on a plate. Now you'll have to figure out which one is relevant to me, and if I need more information, then I will have to pick up those papers and then dig deeper into it, right? So individually you will have to choose, and that will also help you out in the problem of like a lesser number of words that you're going to put up with respect to that paper. So
Okay, thank you, sir. And it's my personal question that I'm working with Green HRM, sir.
mhm,
So in India, we have less studies regarding Green HRM, but I
mhm,
can able to get the foreign repositories more.
mhm,
I mean, I am searching in CI Hub and Shodh Ganga and
mhm,
some elsewhere. something. So
Yeah.
if I need to get more data, can I go with some other sites, or else what do you suggest?
So one common place that you should be looking at all point of time is going to be scholar .google.com.
Yeah, Google. I'm searching in Google Scholar also, sir.
Right. So Google's over there. If you get into that, right, uh, after that, like you find out one paper which has been highly cited. Let's say if we are talking about green HRM right now, okay.
Yeah.
So let's try to figure out. So you can see that there is one paper which has been cited the most, right, and it
Yeah.
is a 2008 paper that we have got, right.
Yeah.
Now
Mm.
this is one way. So once I look into it, and then I basically go ahead and subsequently look into the other researchers that they have cited in their paper up there, right.
Yeah.
So at the bottom, so I got one paper, and that one
Mm.
paper is leading me to multiple
Mm.
other papers in the similar
Yes,
domain
yes.
up there, right.
Yes,
Now
sir.
second thing.
Anyways, I have been collected more than 50, but
Yeah.
still I need some more, because in
Yeah.
India, Indian studies, they have less concentrated on green HRM, sir.
That's
Uh,
true, because it's a very new area, fresh area
yeah,
over there. So not
yeah,
much has been done. So
uh,
anything with green is a very contemporary right now, and that is actually
yeah.
a good place to work right now.
Okay, sir, I have one more query
Mhm.
regarding actually for sustainable development, we need to focus on green, right? In all the perspectives. So,
Mhm.
in MNCs, most of the companies, they are following CSR.
Right.
My doubt is green HRM comes under sustainability development or else under CSR?
Okay, so CSR is a initiative given by, like led by most of the MNCs, and now in India, it has been mandated by the government as well. So
Yeah,
every company has to involve, or like shed out some amount of, like let's say about 2% of their overall profit towards the CSR activities up there. Now CSR activities can be like diverted to many other things which may not be green HRM as well, right? So green HRM basically forms a subset of CSR up over there, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah, when I was going through the review of literature, in some papers I found that it is a green HRM is a branch of CSR, but
right.
in some papers under sustainability, green HRM is one of the parts. So that is the reason I got a bit confused. So that I asked you the
No,
clarity. Thank you,
it
sir.
is it is a part of sustainability up there, right? So because even the CSR also helps the society, the entire overall ecosystem to basically flourish and grow together. So the same is the concept with green HRM. Green HRM is definitely working towards sustainability part, right? So we are trying to reduce on our carbon footprints. We are trying to have certain offices which are more self-reliant, zero emission offices, working
Yeah,
completely on like renewable energy sources. So all those things are there. So it is
yeah.
definitely pertaining to sustainability up over there. So it is there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay. So should we wait for a few minutes, or should we like start? So just let me know if someone knows about the actual strength of people who are going to join. Hmm. So we are about 21 members over here, or like including me, 22. Hmm.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, ma'am. Yeah,
Just now you mentioned about contradictory literature review, right? Something.
right.
So, how far can we use that? How much of it can be contradictory to what we are trying to say?
Mhm. So you should present a fair amount of both the sides of the argument, right? So
Mm.
that is what I believe, and that is what like majority of the people will put it up there as well. So the question is about like how credibility that you provide in your writing, and the credibility comes up only when you have both the sides of argument put there in a fair manner. So I'll give you with an example. Let's say that you are shopping on Amazon, right, and there is one product which has got all positive reviews about it, right? And let's say it has got like about like 200 reviews up there, right? Now, and there is another product up over there from maybe from a different company, and they have got about like 200 reviews again, 100 on the positive sides and 100 on negative sides. So which one is more reliable up over there? Which one will you prefer as more credible information? So,
Eh,
so
Okay. Do you want to have a look at both of them, then to make a decision? That is a better
right,
option.
right.
Yeah.
So that is a source credibility framework. We say it in OB and HR domain. That
Hmm.
let's say talking about employee reviews, right? So or employer,
No, I
like,
understand that
yeah.
we have to give it. What I'm saying is how much of it, but if it is contradictory and I'm concentrating on it, should it be an equal proportion of positive and negative is what I wanted to ask you.
Yes, yes, there needs to be a balance between it. If you completely contradict it, and again, if it is not true, then it is a problem. But if it is a truth and a complete contradiction is required, that is also a finding, right? Or that is also a substantiation that one needs to do. Now,
Okay.
this is one apprehension that a lot of us face in real life, that what if my results do not support, right? So in
Hmm.
reality, in research, even those non-supporting is also a finding, right? So you worked on a particular thing, that this is how it was supposed to be, but the results uh, gave you completely the opposite of the same. And if there are certain arguments which are supporting your negative side of it, so that should be absolutely fine and acceptable by even the research supervisors as well. But somehow we have been hardwired that whatever we have proposed in hypothesis, all our hypothesis should be supported up over there, right? So that is
Uh,
right. So negative finding is also a finding, but somehow that is how it has been, right? So
okay.
and as you dig deeper, you will be able to find out, and with some kind of pilot set testing, you will know which side it is going, and therefore you should take that particular route. That is what I'll suggest, right? So do not do the hard work in this case. So figure out that earlier, do the smart work, and then modify your hypothesis as per your pilot testing that it has been doing there.
Okay. Thanks for the
Yeah,
clarification.
no, thank you, ma'am. Yeah. Okay, so I think let's go ahead and start. So we have members over here. It's,
Sir, one small question, sir.
sure, sure. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Vijay. Yeah.
Sorry for disturbance, sir. Sir,
Not at all.
uh,
Yeah.
the sample size is 400 respondents,
Mm-hmm.
but I distribute the questionnaire through online, 100 respondents,
Mm-hmm.
and I already wrote the paper, complete
Mm-hmm.
paper, research paper. But
Okay.
should I mention the pilot study on the paper, or I should not mention?
So, so you already wrote the paper, right? So, is the paper published? So,
No,
when
sir,
you are
no, not yet.
okay, okay, okay. So, if you are writing a paper, and if you can put down the analysis, be it the pilot testing, that is also absolutely fine. That will increase the chances of your paper's acceptance. So, you should do that.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So you can mention that
Okay,
this
sir.
this is what I have found, and this is what we basically propose. So basically, it may be like the paper may appear initially in the conceptual framework. You will provide that this is the pilot testing that we have
Mm.
done, and then we would like, or future researchers
Mm.
should basically take it up on with more number of respondents up over there. So that you should provide. So you can provide that in the limitation and future scope
Okay,
of
sir.
research. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So any other questions that we have? So let me know. It's going to be long 3 hours for all of us. So if we make it interactive, we all will be able to survive. Otherwise, half of the class will doze off. So let's try to make it as interactive as possible.
Sir, I have a query, sir.
Sure. Yeah.
Like the respondents of the pilot survey, can we have that in the, I mean, can we include it in the main survey as well, or we need to Is it hard and fast rule that we should not include the
Uh,
respondents of the pilot survey in the main survey?
There is no hard and fast rule, but that depends upon like if so. Why do we do the pilot study? So the idea of doing a pilot study is to figure out if it is supporting whatever I was basically proposing there. And
True.
often we fine tune some of either our survey items up over there, or we fine tune some of the hypotheses up over there, right? So if you are modifying your survey even slightly, right, in that
Right.
case the pilot survey data should not be basically used. So if you are not modifying, and if everything was supported as it was supposed to, and if you are continuing with this similar kind of responses from all the places, so there you can obviously go ahead and include the same even for your final paper or final work over there.
Sir, the respondents can be the same in case it is modified. In that
Uh,
case, the respondents whom I took for pilot survey, I can use it in the
you
main
you
survey
can
as well.
yes you can use them. Yeah, you can use them
Okay, sir.
because your survey has changed now, right? So your survey has changed, so you can always go ahead and get back to them and then figure out their responses again.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So let's start by getting to know me a little bit over here, right? So this is a lot of you might be knowing my name already, right? So Ritesh Kumar Dubey over here, basically from Business Analytics and FinTech department in Geetham. Now, prior to Geetham, I was working with a couple of organizations, that is IMT Hyderabad, Institute of Management Technology Hyderabad, and then IBS Hyderabad, that is ICFI Business School Hyderabad. So I am into academics since last like 10, 11 years. Like in 2010, I joined as a PhD scholar at ICFI Business School, and then completed my PhD, submitted my thesis in December 2017, and then completed the defense in April 2018 over there. So post PhD, close to 3 years of experience over there, and at assistant professor level, like 3 years, 3 months of experience that I hold as of now. Uh, I have got like couple of like good publications and then couple of average publications up there. So on an average, I have got about 1A as of now. A couple of them in pipeline, about 5 B papers, and then about like 6 around Scopus papers up there, which may include couple of like A and Bs up there as well. And then some of the other works which may not be directly related to academic literature, but again, some kind of magazine articles and other things are also there. So I am basically from corporate finance and financial accounting domain. So I have been teaching, or my research has been also in the similar lines up there. So my exact work in the PhD thesis area is in algorithmic trading, which is an automated trading with the help of computer uploaded. So this is what about me. Anything else that you'd like to know? So please go ahead, let me know. I'll answer your queries.
Nothing, sir. Proceed, sir.
Okay. So that's absolutely fine. Now, uh, as a part of my PhD work, right? So I visited University of Memphis, that is in Tennessee in USA. A lot of us may be knowing it by the two common names or two popular names over there. So one is the number 7, right? So Tennessee whiskey, that is one, Jack Daniels, and another one is that Elvis Presley. So these are the two famous names which basically pop up when we talk about University of Memphis there. So I got exposed to the way the Western authors basically write as well, and how their PhD thesis is usually framed around. So we are in the habit of writing our PhD thesis in the form of a book, right? Now, a lot of different like universities also prefer like conducting PhD thesis in such a way that it basically is a collection of 3 different papers or 4 different papers, and basically a published paper or accepted papers up over there. So let's say that if you have just completed 4 published papers in the same area up there, you can collate all those 4 papers and put some kind of like a connecting argument between all those 4 papers and what all you have achieved, that in itself is sufficient to basically give you or award you the thesis up over there. So that is how a lot of Western people do. Now, as a suggestion or like as a my learning, what I suggest to you guys as well, that when you are writing your thesis up over here, right? So when you are working on your thesis work, try to convert it. So you may not be able to just do the 4 papers and attach it together. You will not be able to do that. And many a times getting all the 4 publications together within the 4 years time is also going to be difficult. So what I suggest you is that like make the entire paper, make the entire thesis work in such a way that each of those segments can be basically taken out and then sent across as a publication, right? So with a slight modification here and there, it could be basically sent out for publication purpose as well, right? So that is what I would suggest. So make it in a kind of a 3 paper format or 2 paper format, whichever way you like it, right? So or how many number of papers that you want it from there. So try to do that. That will be basically a great help in both the publication aspect. And now we know that there is one publication is mandatory before your thesis submission, right? So that is something that will help you out if you start with it right at the beginning itself, right? So make sure that you frame it, and it's best to have as many number of papers coming out of your thesis as possible. And remember that your thesis is going to take a lot of time, and if you don't do it right from the beginning itself, what is going to happen is that like, whatever you have done at the end, it will basically become redundant, right? So it will basically become old, a lot of new literature will come. So all those things you need to keep into consideration. So start with a very streamlined approach right from the beginning itself, right? Okay, so that's a suggestion or like a kind of learning that I got from that specific location, and then with a couple of other friends from here and there, like few friends from UK, few friends from Australia, and so on. So that is how basically we uh, learn like what they are doing in their PhD work over there, right? So with this, let us go ahead and start today's session. So where we are supposed to talk about literature review and critical thinking, right? Now, why is literature review important, right? So that is one very like generic question which almost everyone will have to answer. Uh, Even if someone doesn't ask, then also you will have to answer it to yourself, right? So why is literature review so important? Anyone who would like to come up?
Through literature review, we can identify the gaps in it and we can go for further study and what we can do further.
Okay, so identification of a gap. For identification of a gap, we need to have a literature review. Okay. Anything else on top of it?
To understand what existing literature is saying, so that as he said, to identify the gaps for going further, it helps
Okay.
to it helps us for further research.
Okay. Okay. So that's correct. So it will help you to figure out what further you need to basically do over there. Okay. Something else, if someone would like to pop up.
To identify if similar work has happened on the same subject.
Okay, great. Yes. So that is the core idea, right? So when we are doing a literature review, or why do we say that why literature review is so important, right? So the idea is that we need not reinvent the wheel if it was already invented by someone, right? So if someone has already done something, and if we are not aware of it, and if we have redone it, maybe in a different or slightly different context, our contribution to the literature may not be sufficient enough to be called as a proper thesis or doctoral work over there. And a lot of people, supervisors, be it internal or external, would not appreciate the same up there, right? Even if the internal supervisor appreciates it, maybe external supervisors will raise certain concerns, and that will basically delay the entire process of the getting the thesis award there, right? So that is why it makes it very important for us to go through the literature and go through it extensively up over there, right? Okay. Now, what exactly is literature review? Just going through the papers? Is that the literature review? or is it something more to it?
There are some changes, sir. Exactly, I mean to say that if that particular literature review, it may be already published long back. It could be like 3 years back or 4 years back. The things
Mhm.
are changing to the current context, so that
Mhm.
can be identified.
Okay, so it needs to be current as well, right? So it needs to be updated. Okay, so we'll be
Exactly, sir.
coming, yeah, we'll be coming to this aspect at the later on, like towards the end of this particular presentation. We are going to emphasize more upon this again, right? So why is literature review? So let's think in a traditional way. Why is literature review so important to all of us? If we are talking about a thesis perspective, what comes to your mind when you think of a thesis, right? So any pictorial presentation of a thesis that comes to you, how does a thesis look like? A big bulky book, right?
What is the contribution to the society about the entire thesis? The
Mhm.
inferences which we get is the what is the ultimate message or the thing what they want to say.
Mhm.
Central idea we are going to
Yeah,
get.
so that is the qualitative
If
aspect
it
of
is,
the,
yeah,
yes, that is the qualitative aspect of what thesis basically should be and what thesis should actually do up there, right? Now, when I say pictorial representation of thesis, so look at the thesis work that someone has submitted, right? So it will be usually a thick volume that will be there, right? A thick volume of
Yeah.
this book, maybe 200 pages, maybe 250 pages. Someone will take a lot of pride in writing 300 pages as well, right? Yeah, someone.
Usually says normally people say that review of literature is the heart of the thesis, where
Mhm.
we can identify what exactly happened, what is happening, and what what we are thinking to happen in our perspective.
Right. So that is, yes, that is what literature review should be doing over here. And that makes literature review the most important part. Again, from the bulkiness side of the paper, that majority of your words are basically going to come up in this literature review segment, because this is where you are describing what has happened in the past and what you are expecting to happen in future as well, right? So this is what you basically are doing, right? So now when we think of a literature review, so we should figure it out that yes, the what you suggested, what Mr. Ajay suggested, right? So it is not just a mere chapter, and it is just not a mere collection of all the thoughts that have been written up in certain journals in past, right? So it should be more than that up over here. So it's not just a chapter in thesis. It's basically going to be the heart of your entire PhD thesis. It is basically going to direct in which direction your like arguments are going to flow towards your conclusion side, right? So is that going to support your hypothesis or is it going to oppose your hypothesis? What all that you are going to do there, so that will be done in this case, right? So it is a process as well as it is an outcome as well, right? So literature review, you start with something and then at the end you basically get a chapter which basically gives you the directing principles or guiding principles towards the later sections that you are going to present in your thesis up over there, right? And it is a process which requires you to start the critical thinking part, right? So you remember the topic of this entire discussion that we are going to have today. It is going to revolve around literature review and critical thinking both. So essentially these two are inseparable to one another, right? So it's not that we are reviewing literature just for the sake of reviewing it. It should be basically a critical engagement, right? And it starts with the reading perspective and then basically imbibing it in our own arguments and then critically evaluating it and then writing it up over there, right? So this is what is very much required, and this is what basically a literature review should be doing it in our journey of a scholar up over there, right? So this is what is basically required there. What does essentially a literature review do to your thesis work or to the idea that you have already generated, right? So when you started your thesis work, so you may have had a vague idea that okay, I would like to basically express or basically try to figure out, is human resource management important, right? or why green human resource management is picking up right now. So why is it happening? Why are companies spending? A company's sole idea should be basically to maximize shareholders' wealth, maximize the profit of the company. But why company is basically spending crores and crores of rupees on green HRM activities? Why it is spending so much money on corporate social responsibility activities up over there? Now, even before, when we did not have a regulation or mandate for spending on CSR activities, still a lot of companies were doing it, right? So, for example, Tata's, Birla's, right, Infosys. So, all those companies were already doing it even before the mandate was there, right? So, why are they basically doing it, right? So, I'm basically trying to figure out those kind of questions up over here, right? So, I have an idea, and I now want to explore these questions which are basically coming to my mind. So what this one will basically, or what this literature review will do for me, is that like it will establish the terms and context of my work up there, right? How can I basically formalize the arguments, formalize the information that I'm basically looking at, right? So I'm basically going to figure out that what are the constraints that I need to focus on, and how do I basically limit myself. Again, a thesis cannot be a vague work, right? Or PhD work cannot be a vague and cannot be a completely generalizable work up over there. Though we want the findings to be generalizable, but we do not want the thesis to be a very vague and containing almost all set of information that is possible. Because if you do that, your life is basically going to become very hard up over there, right? So it should basically do some of those activities for you, which basically streamlines your activities towards the final end goal, right? And what is your end goal? Your end goal is to try to come up with some kind of either incremental or a novel contribution to the existing body of literature up over there, right? So that is what we basically want at the end of the day, right? So a PhD is something. So the very first thing that should come to everyone's mind, that am I doing something which is going to add a new thing or add some kind of novelty to the existing body of literature, right? So this is what we basically try to do in this case. So a literature review will help us in presenting a survey of preceding literature on the topic, right? But that needs to be directed. That direction should be that it should help us to figure out how other people have solved similar problems, right? So remember, we talked about incremental contribution, right? And a novel approach to do the same, right? So can I apply a novel like solution to the existing problems which might have been approached by someone in a different way up there, right? This is also going to basically help you out in figuring out that how these relationships are related, or like pretty crystal clear defined with one another, right? Or how the literature that has been done, let's say that I find on the green HRM, I could search and then I could see that there are so many papers or there are so many works that is basically being done, right? Now let's say if I'm looking at these four papers right now, can I find that there is a connection between these four papers? Is there any connection? Right. So do you look at something over here? Influence of green HRM on green service behaviors, right? Green knowledge sharing. Green practices affect employees' green behaviors. Green HRM psychological green climate, right? And then environmental performance in China. Examining the link between green HRM, green supply chain, and performance, right? So there needs to be a linkage between all of these things when we are looking at, right? So now some of them, for example, let's say I'm looking at this one, right? So the first one and the second one, these two look very much related to one another. So I may be interested in digging deeper into these things, right? So there needs to be a connection between these two. Now, if I look at this, and when I'm looking at this green supply chain up over here, it talks about a different context up there, right? So this context and this context, or maybe this context and this context, are completely different to one another up over here, right? So I will be looking at what? So I will be looking at the relationship with these texts to one another. So literature review will help me in outlining those relationships with one another, and I will be able to figure out that like why these are connected and why these arguments and why these perspectives have been put together in a different form from one another up over there, right? So that is what we are basically trying to do in this case. It will also help us evaluate the quality and relevance of the literature as well, right? Now, uh, if I find something published, right? So is it always meaning that it is of a good quality? Does it mean that if there is a paper which is published, paper A and then paper B, both are published in some journals up over there? Now, can the quality of A and quality of B differ? Can the quality of work A and B differ, though both of them are published? So yes, they can differ, right? So the way that has been dealt with, right? So there are different category of journals in which these papers basically get published, and the quality of work often, again, it doesn't mean always, but often will basically differ in that kind of condition, right? So anything which has a huge or substantial amount of contribution that may get published in a star journal up over there, right? uh, Something which is making some amount of incremental contribution up over there, that may be getting into A rated journals. Something which is just adding something more to an existing body, it may get into B. And then let's say there are a lot of relevant studies in by changing the different context, and then that may basically get into C category journals up over there, or Scopus category journals up over there, right? So this is what we are basically looking at, right? So by reviewing the literature, I'm also trying to figure out the quality and relevance of the work that has been done in the past, right? And how can I improve upon the quality and relevance of my work in this particular scenario, right? So can I do something about it, right? So can I increase more quality than what was basically done before up over here, right? And yes, so the next thing that we almost all of us talked about, that literature review helps us in establishing the gaps or inadequacies done in the past, and that is what we basically build upon, right? So someone's mistake is our learning in this case, right? So if someone has done the mistake, why should I repeat the mistake? Let me go ahead and build upon what mistakes or what gaps that they had left over. Let me try to build upon the same. So this is what basically helps us, like the literature review helps us in achieving this up over there. And it also helps you in demonstrating your scholarly rigor, right? So again, when I say scholarly rigor, that doesn't mean that you basically read 100 papers and that is what your scholarly rigor was. So it not only talks about the quantity of work, it also talks about the quality of work and how well you have written and presented your arguments in the literature review section. It needs to be a very highly like critical review of literature up there, right? So if you are just paraphrasing or rephrasing the works that have been done by the existing works, right, that doesn't add or that doesn't basically count for the scholarly rigor that you have gotten over there, right? It won't count. Doesn't matter even if you read 100 papers and put it over there, or if you put 200 papers, then also it does not matter up over there, right? So a rigor can be presented even by reading 10 papers and then making a substantial amount of contribution, right? It can also be basically presented by reading 100 papers and then trying to figure out that which 10 papers are actually relevant to that specific domain on which you are working up there, right? So a literature review will help you achieve all these objectives of doing a particular thesis work that you are doing, right? And again, remember, all the specific elements of thesis work are interconnected with one another, right? So introduction leads to literature review leads to your gaps will lead to your objectives will lead to your hypothesis building will lead to your hypothesis testing using data collection and research methodology, and that will lead to your further analysis and then your answers to the questions that you started with in the introduction section itself, right? So this is how all of them are basically interlinked up in this case. Okay. So I hope everyone, again, I'm very sure that everyone knows about it. Like many people know it implicitly. They may not be able to tell it in the same 7 point item that I have presented over here, but you know what basically a literature review should be doing up over there, right? So today we are going to deal with the three aspects, right? So what we should know or what we already know, then how should I basically do it, right? And that is the reading part. And then we will be also discussing about how should we write the literature review part, right? So these are the three elements that we are going to work on in today's session up over here, right? Any questions that we have as of now?
No, sir.
Sir, first question, sir. The when you say establishes terms and context, can you define, elaborate a bit more?
Right. So, what happens if you do not have an existing literature pertaining to your work? What is happening in that case? You have a big limitation, right? In that case, there is like, I'm trying to come up with complete novel work, but I do not have an existing literature to back it up. What is that? That is basically giving you a constraint in which basically you will have to operate, right? Now, what I will do, if nothing is available in literature, then I have got only two approaches to move forward. Either I construct an experimental design and then try to figure out what happens, or I basically get into a case study based method research. So it is establishing the terms and context which will basically define how my research methodology is going to be, how am I basically going to arrive at the final conclusions up over there, right? So this is what we mean, right? So if is there something available, if it is something available, now how far it is relevant to me, right? So it will basically tell you the boundaries in which basically you have to operate. And remember, in academic research, right, when we are talking about thesis work, it is always bound by the existing literature review, right? You cannot quote anything else other than your academic research work, right? So for example, yesterday someone asked me that can I basically use newspaper articles and then cite them in my literature review, right? So the answer to that question should be, what should be the answer to such question?
Put it in the footnote.
Yes, so you should be basically like, you can, if you are trying to put it across, it cannot basically form a part of your literature review, but yes, it can basically present a certain fact, supporting fact, and it needs to be basically a part of your footnote up over there, right? So that is what it can be at most. Okay. Okay. So any other question that we have? If no, then we'll move ahead.
And footnote and the same thing should be in the referring part.
No, in reference, it does not go at all, ma'am. It should not. So if you are going to put an article, until unless it's not a policy document up over there, it should never go into your reference work up there. So let's say if there is a RBI regulation up over there, or if there is a Ministry of Human Resource Development, if there is a circular on a certain green HRM practices in organizations up over there, if you are citing that, then only it should basically get into your referencing site. Otherwise, it should not. Right. So there is a strict no for newspaper articles in your thesis work up over there. Right. So
Sir, I have one more doubt. When I have gone through the LinkedIn, so in World Economic Forum, they have presented 2 minutes of video. In that, they discussed about green HRM. Can I take that information into my research?
you will not be able to quote it. So that is the only problem. You will be able to understand it. You should be able to present your arguments based on that. You can frame your arguments based on that, but you cannot cite them and you will not be able to reference it in your work over there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, actually, today, I mean, we have a post-COVID situations, right, sir?
Okay.
So I'm writing on that post-COVID situations. So I don't find any literature review. So we do only find literature review on only SARS-CoV at 2009. So how to write this, sir? I mean, so I have added an newspaper articles at references, sir.
No, it won't be acceptable. It won't be. So what you will have to do is that you will have to get through a qualitative research method, right? So you will have to basically sit through respondents, like basically responses. It may be a focus group discussion. It may be like an expert discussion up over there. You may float the surveys, like it may basically get into the primary surveys up over there. And again, like those surveys need to have well established scales. So you may have to borrow those scales from a similar condition that might have happened in the past, right? It may not be as big pandemic as it is there right now, but it can be something which might have been a pandemic like situation, or basically a bigger healthcare emergency in certain part of the world up over there, right? So that is what you need to basically figure out in that case. So newspaper articles, a strict no.
I mean, can we use some of the articles so that, I mean, research articles along with newspaper articles, like I have just cited
Uh,
few.
no, the answer to that will be, so there is a strict no, right? So there is no argument that you can bring in certain facts, you can present that this research is important, right? Because someone would have said something in a particular newspaper article up over there, right? So that is something that someone has said, and it basically highlights the need of this kind of research. That is what you can basically quote, and then you can basically put it in the footnote, right? And again, the person who is basically quoting those things, that need to be a highly credible person up over there. Otherwise, it's not going to add any value or any credibility to your work up over there.
But then I think, sir, we can be using information like from the Spanish flu, Ebola, and other stuff to find out. Wouldn't it be useful to use that kind of
Yeah,
information over here?
yes, that is what we suggested, right? Or that is what we were basically trying to explore. So we need to borrow information from some similar kind of, like, it may not be exact pandemic. It may be like when we say the term pandemic, right? So pandemic has got a clear-cut definition that it should basically engulf the entire globe up over there. Now, in many of the cases, if it was just Ebola, if it was like, let's say, like AIDS related situation up there in African countries, if there were some kind of other situation, those may not have been declared as a pandemic, but they have a similar kind of a medical emergency available up over there, right? So that medical emergency situation and research is based on those medical emergency situation can act as my literature support for borrowing arguments and borrowing certain scales for our like hypothesis building and our hypothesis testing framework up over here. So that is actually that is how actually it needs to be done. That's true. Okay.
Sir, one more, sir. Sir, if the
Mhm.
financial market is, I mean, if the financial market all of a sudden crashed, so should I mention about that, or else regarding that? I mean,
That is a fact, right? So if a financial market crashes, so it's not a newspaper article, it is also a well documented policy document as well, right? So your stock exchange is going to document that in some or the other way. So there will be a circular up over there. So you can quote a couple of newspaper articles just in the footnote to highlight the issue up over there. But the best would be if you can basically acknowledge if any of the exchanges or if any of the regulatory bodies have basically put that up in perspective. So that would be the best thing to do. Even though in the case of event, and the way to look forward to that kind of research may be an event study based research in that case, right? So I can basically look out at certain events, and then I can basically study pre or post kind of such kind of events, their performance or their impact on the market or the people up over there. So regarding quoting of the article again, so there is no way you will be able to justify that I need to basically quote a newspaper article in my research work. One reason, imagine a situation what a particular newspaper article is writing with respect to government and on today's date, right? So is it critical review of the government's work, or it is just criticizing just for the sake of criticizing it, right? So I'll give you the two different perspectives, right? So NDTV on one side and then Z News on other side, right? So what do you feel like? So is any one of them credible? Or like again, one may come up and say that maybe NDTV is credible, right? One may come up and say that Z News is credible, but overall there will be a tussle between these two for sure, right? So it's, and this is the reason why, and it will change, right? So based on if the government changes, if the context changes, right? So people will start saying something else, and that is where the newspaper articles basically lose credibility. And many a times a lot of newspaper articles are just opinions based on certain facts which are not verified, right? And if those facts and if the data behind it is not verified, in that case it becomes very difficult to support those kind of arguments up over there. Right? So that is the reason why I am saying, and that is the reason why a lot of people who are like working in academic sites, they will say that there is no complete no about newspaper articles up over there.
So, sir, we need to mention keynote for that,
Yeah,
right, sir?
footnote for that.
Footnote.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it, sir.
Yeah.
But in some of the universities, I went to Kakatiya University, sir. So how they referenced under footnotes, they have given the references. I mean, page-wise references.
I know it can be done. And again, let's say if I'm talking about any news as such, let's say about a market crash, right? So again, APA does allow for such kind of a crash or like such kind of like newspaper citation up over there. Okay, I just use another browser of mine. Okay, so this is the article, and you will find that I have got a tool over here which can basically cite it as per my APA 7 citation up there, right? And I can definitely go ahead and cite it as my reference, but will it be acceptable to the reviewers up over there? That is a question. I can cite it for certain reports. I can cite it for my MBA related work. I can cite it for my undergraduate related work. But if you think it from a thesis perspective, this is not something that basically needs to be cited up over there, right? In the footnote, you copy it and then you paste it in the footnote over there, and that needs to be done in as per the APA citations style or whatever that university basically follows. So you can do it, but at the end in the referencing section, you should not do it there. Referencing section basically needs to be, since we are working on thesis, that needs to be completely based on existing literature base which is up over there. And if someone says that there is extremely or like completely no literature up over there, right? So I would disagree 100% of the time that there must be some place or something which you can basically borrow upon, right? So there is not going to be a complete innovation that you are going to bring in your thesis work, which is going to disrupt the entire market, right? So that's not going to happen. uh, Imagine the most disruptive innovation that you have come up with. What is the latest disruption that you think of? I'll be able to provide you one such backup, which or like one certain reference point from where it would have basically picked it up. So I will be able to provide you at least one backing up, either in the form of like technology, either in the form of a methodology, either in the form of a literature or work something, or a problem that has been identified previously, and that is what you have worked on to help them out, right? So this is so any argument that you pose it to me for citing a newspaper article is going to be a no. Universities will differ from place to place. Universities are going to like allow certain leniencies on these things, and that is completely up to your supervisor up there, right? But in case if I become a supervisor up over here, in that case that will be a complete no from my side. But if someone else is there who's a bit lenient, he will basically say that go ahead, do it. But remember what we are discussing right now, that is the most ideal situation we are discussing, and that is where it should be a complete no to these kind of works up over there, or no to a citation of a newspaper article in your literature review, in your entire thesis work up over there.
Sir,
Yeah.
my question is almost related to what you have just said now. You did take an example of business world,
Right.
okay? Like I do have an article. I would say it's a forecast and analysis of preschool market in India. I'm doing my research on entrepreneurship related to preschool. So this has come, the news has come in business world,
right?
And actual source is Technavio.
Okay.
So and the Technovia website and Business World website, we do have two websites right now.
Okay.
So the Technovia website, which is the actual, there's a snapshot given with regard to preschool market size in India has the potential to grow by USD $3.27 billion. So this is, can I pick this from Technovia website? Though I don't have the full article with me, but it's just a snapshot.
You can pick it up, but the question was, are we going to include it as a part of a literature review, right? So this is not basically becoming a literature review, right? This is basically a presenting a fact, and then you can say that, okay, this is the market, and at the footnote you will basically provide that, okay, this is how or from where I have got this information.
Okay, I can cite this.
Yes, you can cite this not as a literature review. You can cite it as a fact which might have motivated you to pursue research in that domain.
True, sir. That's in the introduction section.
Right.
Actually, I'm putting this.
Yes,
Right.
yes, yes.
Right. So I can put this.
Yeah, you can put that. So newspaper articles can be put, right, but try avoiding it as much as possible, right? But it can be put, but it cannot go into your referencing section. It can only go till your footnote section up over there.
Okay, sir. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So another question which has come up: can we use internet source? So yes, we are basically living in the internet world. All our sources are basically going to be internet source up there. You can cite it, but it is not going to get into your referencing section at all, right? Until unless it is a policy report, unless it is a report by some reputed organizations who can basically take up those blames and claims that will come along with it, right? So then only basically it gets accepted, but otherwise it needs to be a completely academic literature up over there, or it needs to be a regulator's description or a policy decision that has come up in public domain, or it needs to be a kind of, it can be a white paper that might have come up, right? So all those things need to be there, then only basically it gets into your reference section. A patent that may get into your reference section, right? But again, rest of these things like the general newspaper article, general information, you won't be able to put it up over there. Okay. Okay. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Sheikh. Okay. So this is what we are discussing, right? So that what should we do and what should we basically include or what we should not include. Now, whenever we are working with respect to the literature review, right? So we always think about what we have to include, but another aspect to it is that like whatever we are including, are we thinking it through, right? So are we critically evaluating it, right? So it should not be that somebody has done it, let me go ahead and put it because our titles basically match, right? So that was also talking about green HRM, and we are also talking about green HRM, though the context is different, right? So one of them was supply chain and another one was basically employee performance up there. So since it included green HRM, should I basically go ahead and use it? So that is where critical thinking basically comes up, and that basically allows you to dissect it, right? So that should I include or should I not include? Is it relevant or is it not relevant, right? So that is what we basically need to figure out, right? Now I need to basically delineate, right, the articles which are relevant or not relevant based upon our critical thinking, right? I need to a literature review may be there, right? A particular work might be published somewhere and it is available. I need to critically analyze its strengths and its weaknesses up over there, right? So what kind of strengths? So maybe the methodology is pretty good, but maybe the findings are pretty weak. There are a lot of limitations that basically he has proposed in his work up over there, right? So I can cite that as a weakness. And remember, like this critical thinking approach is what is basically going to help you in finding your research gaps up over there, right? So if you're not doing it, you will not be. And again, this needs to start right from the first paper that you basically start reviewing, right? The first paper that you start reading, this is where it basically needs to start up, and this is where basically you need to move forward through, right? So figure out a particular work or figure out a particular paper that you're basically studying, right? And then figure out the strengths and weaknesses of that particular paper up there, right? So if it is worth doing it, right? So is the quality good? Is the methodology that has been used that is good? So are there any limitations, right? So all those things that you basically need to explore before you are basically including it in your own literature review section up over there. Okay. It allows you, right? So the critical thinking, but it allows you to gain the critical understanding of your own field, right? So at the end of the day, when you're working on your thesis, you are basically becoming an expert in that field, right? So that's why you get a doctor's degree and it, right? So that is the highest level of degree that is possible in that case, right? So you should be basically doing it in a very critical manner. You should be critiquing the paper, and this need not be on in the form of writing, right? So you should be asking these questions mentally every time you are basically reading the paper of the right. So is it worth doing it, right? So what he did, is it actually correct, right? Or should I basically look from a different perspective? Was there any other author who was like either supporting him, or was he basically opposing him, right? So this is what basically makes it a complete critical review of literature up over there, right? It will help you in identifying the trends which are there in that particular field, right? So it will help you in finding out similarities, patterns, trends, and also the differences across the existing literature. And remember, the differences are more important than only the similarities up over there, because these two together will add to the credibility of the work that you are basically presenting in that case, right? So if you want to dig deeper, you can basically get into the source credibility framework up over there, and there you will find that like positive and negative reviews basically together provide a more credible information to the end user, rather than being completely positive or rather than being completely negative up over there, right? So this is what basically one needs to look into. Okay, now yeah. Okay. So you need to identify the weaknesses up there, and you will be able to think what needs to be done, right? So this is what was the core aim of doing the entire literature work, right? So when I do this, I'm basically able to figure out what are the gaps that I'm basically going to look into, right? So this should be a literature review should always lead to a critical review of the literature, and that criticality should lead to your gaps up over there, and these gaps are basically going to help you in creating your objectives, and that objective will basically lead to your hypothesis building up over there, right? So this is the connect that you need to basically follow, and it comes from all the literatures that you are basically going to include in your work there, right? I hope this is clear to everyone, right? So this is how it needs to be done, and this is what it needs to be done at the stage of your literature review. So critical thinking and reading part, right? So most of the times when we talk about literature review, we basically end up counting the number of papers that we have read, counting the number of papers that we have cited, right? So that is not the right approach. Uh, how? What is the shortest PhD thesis that you would have seen? Anyone? The shortest in terms of number of pages? Is there a thumb rule that the PhD thesis needs to be of 200 pages or 100 pages?
I have seen a thesis of 150 pages, sir, in
Oh,
Kakatiya University.
okay, so that is 150 pages. Anyone else with a smaller number?
47 pages.
How many? 47.
Yeah.
Okay, where is it coming from? Like which particular area? Mhm.
I don't remember.
Okay, so
One of the professor, he is from IIM Delhi, sir.
mhm.
He said his thesis is 95 to 100 pages. That's it.
Yes, so there are many of the IIM thesis, you will find it in the close to 100 bracket up over there, right? But the shortest thesis that you will find across the globe is going to be close to 40 pages up there. And by John Nash, he was basically into mathematics up over here. And his paper was like his basically thesis work was, it is available in the public domain as well. And it was somewhere close to 37 to 39 pages up there. So it is less than 40 pages, and it is a thesis work. He was awarded doctorate for that specific work, right? So that is where I say that it's not only about the number of pages that you are going to include in your review of literature, right? It should be basically the critical analysis that you are doing, and what substantial or like incremental contribution that you are making it up over there, right? So forget about the number of pages in that case, right? So if you are able to communicate and convey something uh, very vigorously and in a proper argumentative way up there, and it adds to the body of literature, right? In that case, a smaller size of the thesis is also absolutely fine, right? So there is nothing more that basically needs to be done, right? But so do not block yourself by the number of pages up there, right? So let it be as it is, but ensure that whatever literature is available, right? So if it is a completely novel, you know there are not much of literatures available up there. You may end up reviewing just 5 papers up there, maybe 10 papers up over there, right? That is what you will end up doing. But if you have something which has a lot of papers, you may have to go till 100 of such papers as well, right? So depending upon your research area, your number of pages or the number of papers that you need to review, that will basically go up and down up over there, right? Okay. So it never so a PhD thesis never basically tells you the number of pages that you basically need to bring in. A lot of IIM papers, I know for sure they are basically going to be on the lower side. It will be somewhere close to 100 pages, 120 pages, right? I uh, I know a lot of PhD guides. They also have this apprehension that the thesis needs to be bulky. It needs to be of minimum 200 pages. Then only basically it looks like a thesis up there, right? So somewhere you will have to discuss it with your guide, and then again, if you are able to convince, and if you know that this particular area does not have this much of thing to be done, then it should be absolutely fine, and you should be able to move ahead and graduate with the same up over there, right? Okay. And the gap that you are basically going to find after all these things, right? So that is where your justification for your research basically comes in from, right? So this is what you basically do in that case. Now, why is it important to write critically or read critically in that case, right? So remember, when we are doing a thesis work, we are trying to add some amount of knowledge to the existing body of literature, right? It may be an incremental, it may be a completely novel up over there, but we are doing something which is basically reflecting to this higher order level of thinking up over there, right? So this is higher order thinking levels that we call it. So we are creating something new with our thesis work up over there. It may be based on a lot of things which are on the base, right? So I am basically evaluating or analyzing the existing literature, right? I'm applying some of the existing literature works or existing literary works up over there into my new work, maybe in a different context up over there, and I'm trying to create something which is basically going to be useful and which is going to be adding to the existing body of literature, right? So we are creating something, and that is where it needs to be highly critical up there, right? We are not just providing just a plain simple argument that okay, yes, this is also possible and this is also possible. No, we are not going to do that, right? We are going to put an argument, or we are going to present our findings in such a way that it will basically lead to a future work that someone can basically take up. And every research that you are going to take up, it is definitely going to have certain limitations, and it is definitely going to have certain future scope of work as well. If it does not have, then it means that your entire process of creation and then again starting the research work up, that basically stops up over there. So your learning will basically stop, and the evolution of learning will not happen in that case up over there, right? So this creation that we are talking about, or this is basically, a lot of us might have heard about this Bloom's taxonomy up over there
Yeah,
for
yes.
preparation of our question papers, right? But
Yeah,
this is
when we are preparing the question paper, we'll be using Bloom's taxonomy pattern.
right, right. So the same needs to be there, even though we are not preparing a question paper, but our thesis is basically answering to a particular need that you found out, right? So you found out a gap, you found out a research question, that is what you are trying to answer as a part of your thesis. So this needs to be of this particular level. That is what we require as a part of our thesis work, right? Now, if you look at from a different or slightly revised, like, so this is the revised taxonomy that we have. If you look at it, you will be able to figure out that, yeah, we have an existing body of knowledge, right? So this is a literature that we have, right? We understand it, we try to figure out the applications of it, we analyze it, then we basically evaluate it, and then we basically synthesize and create the newer body of knowledge, which will eventually become the basis of the future works, and that will basically add to the body of knowledge up over there, right? So this is nothing but this is the same Bloom's taxonomy that we are using for students, right? What we want the students to be able to do, we want them to be able to decide on certain decision making capabilities, and those capabilities are the higher level skills. And we are talking about the highest degree available in the academic domain, which is basically doctorate, So this basically becomes the most important parameter up over there. So we should be always focusing on this specific domain rather than just analyzing it in two different contexts and then presenting the findings, just applying another methodology and then presenting the findings, right? So that should not be done. Understanding, right? So now this basically becomes this is a kind of a place where it is critical, because the way the knowledge was created, I may be able to present it in a slightly different way. The interpretation from researcher to researcher is going to be different, and therefore this understanding will basically lead to synthesizing of a certain interpretation, and that interpretation can also basically lead to adding to the body of literature, right? So you might have come across a lot of review of literature papers, right? So that is, the entire work is nothing but it is basically a review of literature in that specific area. So is that a novel creation, or is that an incremental contribution to literature? So yes, it is also a contribution to literature up over there. A lot of a recent trend that you will find in a lot of journals is coming up with something which is known as bibliometric analysis, right? Have you heard of this term, bibliometric? So what this does is, so bibliometric does is that, like, in the same journal or maybe in the same area, if there are 100 or 150 papers or 200 papers that have been published, right? It looks into those and tries to figure out any trends that have basically come up with, right? So I'm reviewing the literature and then trying to figure out the trends over there, and then I'm basically reporting that what could be the possible futures based on the past trends. If I can basically come up and then predict what is going to happen in near future up there, what that, like, how much of distance have we covered as a part of research in that specific area. This is something similar to, but not exactly like the meta-analysis that we do, right? So when we say meta-analysis, so we are basically looking at the multiple journals and then trying to basically, or multiple articles we are trying to do look into, and then trying to figure out the common theme up over there, right? So that we need to do, right? So it is something similar, but not exactly the same in that case, right? So we need to basically focus on the higher level skills, that is synthesis and creation in that case, which should lead to my knowledge creation up over there. And this is the core and crux idea of what you are basically going to do in your entire thesis work up over there, right? So now we know what we are supposed to do, right? So any question that we have on that? From here, what we are going to do is that, like, how we are going to do it, right? So the doing part basically includes two things. One of them is reading part, and another of them, or the next one, is basically the writing part up over there. So we'll be taking these two in the subsequent sections of our discussion up over here, right? So any questions on what we are supposed to do, right? So I hope that everyone gets a clarity on what we are basically supposed to do in this case. Any questions that we have now, how we are supposed to do, we are now basically going to focus into it, and we are basically going to reiterate some of those things with certain real life examples up over here. Okay, so if we have no questions, then let us go ahead and dig a bit deeper, right? So whenever you are reading a literature, right? So whenever you are reading a literature, it needs to be basically dealt, right? So remember, we talked about the critical thinking, right? So critical thinking should start right from the day one, when you basically picked up the first paper itself, right? When you picked up the news article, which basically inspired you to basically uh, 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 get into this kind of research. So the moment I'm reading a newspaper article, I'm critically analyzing, is it worth exploring this particular area as a part of my thesis work? Is it going to make substantial amount of contribution, right? So this is how I basically start. Now, once I start making that decision that yes, it is worth, then let me get into the literature part. I will start picking up certain papers in that domain. Now, when we are picking up those papers in that domain, right? So that is where this read critically basically comes into uh, like practice, and this basically needs to be imbibed as a part of our habit. Every time we pick up something, it needs to be critically reviewed, and that is what we are basically going to do in this case, right? So I want to figure out what is the research aim of the paper or the book that we have, right? So is there any objective that the paper basically wants to expect or that the paper wants to basically achieve through the entire purpose or through the entire 20 or 30 pages that it basically brings in. So this is basically available in the abstract section of that particular paper itself, right? So where the research aims, so they provide a brief summary in the abstract itself, and I basically get to know that yes, is it relevant for me or is it not relevant for me, right? The second question that we should basically ask is that, like, is the research aim achieved, and if so, how did they do it, right? So this also basically, this reading critically also provides you the basic steps in how you have to read a paper as well, right? So this is what it tells you. So is the research aim achieved? Now where do I get that information? So this was basically coming from abstract, right? This one is basically going to come from the conclusion section up over there. At the end of the paper, you see if what they are basically saying, so did they achieve it or did they not achieve it, right? So that will be basically highlighted up over there, right? Then if they have achieved it, how did they do it? So that basically gives you the next section that you should be basically looking into, that is the methodology. And then you again need to look into it critically, that is there any problem or is there any limitation in their methodology up over there, right? Was it a strong or weak research model, right? So then that will basically help you in figuring out, should I use the same methodology or should I basically use a different methodology up there for my own work up there, right? So how this research is going to help me with my own research, right? So I may borrow the methodology up over there. I may borrow the pro and cons arguments that is basically going to come up from this particular work, and I will be basically evaluating that, does it basically fit? If it fits, then is it fitting in the pro side or is it basically fitting into con side up over there, right? So that is what basically we are going to look into it. We evaluate that what can I basically take from it, right? So this is what, so whatever we are going to take from it, we need to basically include it in our literature review part up there, right? So we will be basically making a note of the same, and then we will be basically doing it. What needs to be avoided, right? So you figured out certain weaknesses. Remember in the past we were talking about figuring out the strength and weaknesses of the paper, right? So I need to basically remove those kind of negative things that basically this paper had. If I could do that, that will be again something which I'm adding value to the existing body of literature, and then trying to answer it to yourself, that what are you doing it differently than what the person was basically doing, or what, like contemplating what you are going to do differently in your own work up over there, right? So this is what you need to do while you are reading the very first paper itself, and this needs to continue till the last paper that you are reading in order to formulate your entire structure of your writing of the literature review part up over there, right? So any questions that we have on this, right? So this is something that we do it, but many a times we may get lenient on this part. We may not be as critical, we may not be as structured as we are supposed to be, and that is where the problems basically start up. And a lot of your external reviewers or maybe your research guide is basically going to come up and say that, tell me why is this, and then you fumble in front of him that, okay, I'm not able to answer on it, let me go ahead and read back the paper and then come back to you again, right? So if you do it in the first step itself, you don't have to go back and read it again, right? So make sure that you follow these steps when you are doing it for the first time, and that should basically do the job. Start making a note of it, start writing at least a paragraph, which may help you even in the writing of the literature review part as well, right? So start doing that. That will help you in this case.
Sir, one question, sir.
Sure.
How do we know whether it is a strong or weak research model by looking at the paper?
Okay, so one way to find out is that what kind of conclusion that they have arrived at, and what are the limitations that they have proposed up over there. So that is one way of finding it out. Second way of finding it out, like what category of journal it has been published, right? That is one. Another one to look at, right? So again, journal classification is not something that I will expect. So there are a lot of good quality work published in C category journals as well, and then there are a lot of poor quality journal like work which has been published in A category journals as well, right? So this is completely, so I'm not basically going to look into that, but I'm going to look into something which is more important, that is like, are there certain limitations that you have found up over there, right? So is there any limitation that the author themselves, if they have cited? Now if you look at a credible work, then you will find that every author will report it pretty well. Now, if you are not, if the author has not reported it that there is any weakness in the methodology, then you need to be strong in your review work, right? And you can basically seek help from someone who is strong in the methodology part, right? Whenever we are doing thesis work, it doesn't mean that everything I have to do it, right? So I can collaborate with someone who is having a good methodology experience and who's good at methodology, and he can help me understand if this particular model is strong or weak up over there. My supervisor can basically help me and engage me in understanding if it is a strong or weak research model. Like on today's date, we are aware of the plethora of information that is available on the internet, right? So type that particular research model and then just put the implications of the model or the lacunae of the model, and you will get a lot of different articles or like opinions from the various methodologists up over there. They will tell you that okay, these are the weaknesses that they have, right? And every statistical research that we are doing that is bound by certain assumptions, you need to figure out that where those assumptions held valid or where those assumptions violated, and that will be also going to give you an idea whether the research method was a research model was good or bad in that case, right? So it comes from experience, it comes from knowledge, it comes from collaboration. That is how basically you will be able to figure out is it strong or is it weak in that case. Okay, so I hope that answers. If you have any follow-up question, do let me know.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. So make the reading critically as a habit for you guys, right? So make it very much relevant. Okay. There is one question which is coming up over here. In PhD thesis, we basically add review of literature. It should be paraphrased, or should we follow any other method or any other approach up over there? So the term that we should basically use is that it doesn't need to be paraphrased or it doesn't need to be just rephrased. It needs to be in your own words up over there, what you find as a gist of reading the paper, right? So once I read the paper and whatever is my finding, right, so what can I basically take from it? That is what I am supposed to write in the part of the literature review, right? So there are two aspects of writing a literature review. One, I describe, right, that what they have done, and then the second part where I'm critically evaluating what did they basically miss out, right? So I describe what they have done, and the second part that what did they basically miss out, and I need to basically report the same, and both of these need to be done in my own words. It cannot be just paraphrasing of the same that whatever they have done there. Again, I know that we are basically going to quote them and we are basically citing them at most of the places, and we will be saying, so we usually use the third person approach of writing these, right? So authors suggested, authors argued, authors stated, they basically did this approach, right? So they basically took a survey of 390 students or 390 employees from so and so organization, right? So we are presenting it in a different way, and again, it's not just a paraphrasing that we are doing, and we are trying to figure out if it is basically a worthwhile work that they have done, and if we can basically take something more meaningful out of it. And the descriptive part, that gives you the general idea of what they have done, but this is what basically the what they have missed out, this is what basically leads you to the gaps that you are looking for, right? So whenever we are reading through literature, our sole aim of reading through the literature should be finding out the gaps, right? So that is why we read the literature through, right? So it should not be exactly paraphrased, and it should be written critically, and that is why we are going to have this session, or that is what we are doing right now. I'll come to how it is to be written, that also I'll come to it, right? And I'll show you how it was written in my work as well. So I'll showcase that as well, that how we did it. Okay, so describe it, then also critically evaluate it and figure out what did they miss, and that will lead to your gaps up over here, right? So I hope that basically adds to your question, right, or that answers your question, Mr. Sheikh.
Sorry for interruption, sir. That means yeah, identification of the various dimension and wherein we have to work for it. Exactly, sir. What you are
Right.
referring to.
Right. So identifying what they have done and how basically we can borrow from them, right? What relevant areas we can borrow from them up over there, right? So we are basically borrowing the literature, borrowing the literary support from them in order to support my own arguments up there, right? And when it is my own arguments, so it needs to be written in my way up over there, right? That is what we need to do. Okay. So when you are trying to read a particular, do we have any other question?
No, sir, it's fine.
Okay. So when you are
No, sir. No, sir.
okay, so when we are reading it, right? So make sure that the kid inside you, right? So I'm using this particular term. Let the kid in you come out, right? So you should start asking questions that okay, the person says, right? So I let us go ahead and look into any of the works up over there, right? So let's look at okay this one. Okay, so let's look at any of such works up over here, right? So Google Scholar. Okay, let's take any. Again, we took the green HRM. Let's take that. Okay. The statement is there is a growing need for the integration of environmental management into human resource management, right? Green HRM research and practice, right? So this is a statement that has been made, right? Now the question that you should ask that okay, why does it need, right? Or why is it needed, right? Who says that it is needed, right? So all these questions you should basically look at it, and if you are looking at these, right, so you should be basically able to find out that is there any regulatory body which is making these kind of noises, right? So maybe at World Economic Forum, maybe at World Trade Organization, somewhere some kind of policy or some kind of resolution was basically done, and that basically tells me that there is a need of inculcating or integrating the environmental management into human resource management up over there, right? So that should be the ideal approach. So if I'm reading this particular statement, right, so there is a growing need, right? So there may be a growing need, but why do I need to agree with it? I will not agree with it, and why should I take it at its face value? I feel that I don't need green HRM at all, because that is going to include or going to imbibe additional cost into my organization, right? And I'm not ready for that. I may not be able to sustain in long run because it is going to lead to reduction in my profitability. And if the markets are dynamic, just like the current pandemic situation, I'll be going bankrupt, right? So why should I trust this particular line on its face value? Right? Why should I do it? I should not, right? So that is what the question is, that you should ask questions like why. You should ask a question like, okay, who says that there is a growing need? If you add a particular name up over there, let's say that I am providing the policy makers at World Economic Forum suggest that there is a growing need for integration, right? So now it becomes more specific up over there. Now I don't need to figure out is it reliable or not. I know that World Economic Forum, a group of like highly talented and highly noticeable people up over there, and they
Yeah.
are
Can I
suggesting it.
interrupt, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
Because if UN supposed and suggested sustainability development, and they made it CSR is a mandatory one, then the green HRM concepts come into the picture. So that is how to protect the environment, and we need to inculcate green in every area. Maybe it may be a costliest one, but what I thought is like government should make it mandatory, or else, as you said, someone says that it is a costliest one. But
Yeah.
as a responsible citizens, we need to follow something.
So I do not agree with you. What will you do about it?
So we have some ISO certifications and standards that we need to follow. So
Why
because
do we need to follow?
so we are living in a society, we should follow the
I
government's rules
I
and regulations.
Yes. So there
Yeah.
you are coming to the point that there is a government rule and regulation and we need to follow it. I can trust the government rule and regulation, but I will not trust your personal views and personal opinions.
Yeah.
So this is
Okay.
what is being done over here, right? So it is just a general opinion. Why should I trust it?
Okay.
right?
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Now
So
I got it.
so I'll tell you a funny story about it, right? So it's the same. I reiterated the same in the last session as well. So this was a similar exercise. Writing of a one paragraph was supposed to be done by another colleague of mine on a particular topic that both of us were working, right? So he came up with a very general statements like the same, right? So we need to basically bring in the market is changing, right? There is an emerging need of latest technology and so on, right? So at every sentence, it felt like a speech that I'm basically going to give, right? So I am not. So when we are writing academically, it is not a speech that you are writing up there, right? It is not like a lot of like power that you need to generate, and that needs to be basically reflected into your writing up there. That doesn't need to be there. It needs to basically have authenticity, credibility, and reliability whenever you're writing, especially in the academic literature up there. On a speech, I go ahead, say anything, it is absolutely fine. But when I'm putting it on a piece of paper, it gets documented, it gets reviewed, it gets like again reused somewhere, right? So I need to make sure that it is reliable and it is credible, and therefore I always need to quote something which basically makes sure if I'm writing this statement, I will ask who said that, right? Why do I need to feel that way, right? So if it is coming from, let's say, a very renowned person, let's say if there is some person who's working in green HRM and he's a top rated author up there, and if he says something, we will listen to him, right? If you say, I won't listen. If I say, you won't listen up there, right? So my words and your words are not going to matter in that case. But if he is a top rated author up there, if he is a lawmaker of a particular like country, if he is a regulator up over there, so we will listen and we will quote him as it is, that okay, this is of opinion, or he is of opinion that this is what, and this basically adds credibility to it, right? So you and me are not going to matter in this case, right? So this is what we need to do in while writing. I need to make do not or I need not make generalistic statements up over there. I need to ensure that whatever I'm stating, that is backed up by either existing literature or a credible source or a credible person or office up over there, right? That is how basically you write, and every statement needs to be the same way, right? That is how we basically present it in that case. Okay. Uh,
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. You again in thesis work, you will write and you will basically put across a lot of arguments to it, and those arguments of pro and cons that will basically lead to your final theme of the work or final stages of your work. Now, those arguments are often helped with certain logical conclusions and certain literature which is basically back again, right? So I will say that okay, this is how basically it happens. Until unless it is not a fact, it needs to be basically backed up by something up over there, right? So that is where I need to basically bring upon the idea of what we need to do while we are reading the paper. And I need, and again, this basically what you are reading, the same basically gets reflected into your writing aspect as well. So I should ask, like just like a kid, right? So when you give something to a kid, you see how many questions do the kids ask, right? So I've got a 4-year-old kid, right, and he keeps on bogging me with hundreds of questions in just 15 minutes of time. So that is what you are supposed to do it in when you are reading a particular article up over there, right? So you ask why do I need to read this? Why does he say that? Is it logical to say that, right? How does that basically work? Like, what is that made of? What is that for? What is the actual uses of that? What does that mean? But X says, now this is again a very important aspect, right? So remember, we talked about contradicting views, right? So this particular article that I'm reading, he says that okay, this is what needs to be done, but I remember that X was saying that this is how it was supposed to be. Now whom do I trust? Should I trust X or should I trust A? So in my work, I will look at critically what this person and what this person says. Whichever sounds more logical, I will present both the facts in my review, but whichever sounds more logical and more appealing to me and more factual to me, I will go along with that particular argument up there. I will have to take a call up there. I will have to decide what I need to do, right? But that I will be doing it after fairly representing the views of A and X up over there, right? Now, how do you know, right? So if the person, right? So the person who was writing this article up over here, there is a growing need. How do you know that there is a growing need? I don't need it. I'm making a lot of profit. Why do I need green HRM? And when you are saying that I need green HRM, you are basically asking me for a lot of resources. So you are going to reduce the cash that is available to me. So how do you know that I need green HRM, right? So you don't know. If you know, you will say that, okay, there are hundred of companies which basically participated in this experiment, and they were able to make 10 times more money just because of they were able to have 10 times more happy employees, which were more productive when they basically followed the green HRM practices up over there. Sales basically improved because they had a good green HRM practices, and the buyers or the customers were willing to get associated with certain group of companies which are more ecologically or more socially responsible up over there. So if you bring in those arguments backed up by certain research, backed up by certain literature, then only you will be able to justify that. Otherwise, you need to keep on asking, how do you know, right? If it says, right, that okay, this is what it happened, so what? So you say that okay, the way I asked you, right, that like green HRM is up over there, right? So we need green HRM because society, we are living in a society. So what? I don't want to be a part of it, right? So you say it. So then basically you back your argument with the regulators up over there. Then I said that okay, regulator is saying I need to be a law-abiding citizen, so I need to basically follow up there. So keep on asking these questions, right? And then only you will be able to read critically, and then only you will be able to reflect on it onto your writing side as well, right? So this is where the reading part becomes very important to all of us, right? And this is why it is important for a lot of our review of literature. And this is not important only for review of literature, this is important even for your introduction section, and this is important even for the rest of the sections that you are going to present in your analysis, and also the conclusion and discussion section as well, right? So this is fairly important up there. Okay. Okay. So this is again the scenario that we basically bring in. What happens if this becomes this, and what happens if this becomes that up over there, right? So keep on asking these questions, right? So keep on figuring out all the resources that you have, right? So what you need to do as a part of when you are trying to, so now we are moving from reading part, now we are basically trying to move from reading towards the writing side. Now before we write and before we start writing up over there, I need to figure out that what all are the resources available to me, right? Where all are the resources, right? So I will basically go ahead and look into it. So Google Scholar is a very good place to look into it. Now, the idea of finding all the resources, right, is basically again, there is a proper way of doing it, right? So what you can do is that like find out the most recent work in that particular domain, right? Now that recent work will be basically citing 3 or 4 different works, which are again, they will be citing about 20, but out of those 20, there may be 2 or 3 which will be directly related to your work that you want to basically pursue, or that may be closely related to your work up there. So you pick up those 3, and in those 3 again there will be another 3 that they will be citing, which will be there, right? So you are trying to create a kind of a tree network, or tree or branching network, or you can call it as a neural network kind of, and you start exploring those kind of works there. So whichever is important, right? So you start basically looking at that. So let's say that if this basically became important for you, so you started looking into it. Out of these 3, so this one was important, these 2 were not. Then from this one you again went to 2 or 3 different papers up over there, right? So again, out of this one was important. So this is how you should be basically looking at resources up over there. There will be an end to your findings after a certain level of like up there, right? So maybe most of the cases, after 5 levels of referencing, you will find that it basically becomes pretty vague, and you can basically stop it after that point of time, right? You can go through another paper, right? Maybe paper number 2, which you found important, and accordingly, which is very closely related to your work, and again you can continue the process, right? So this is how, so you may be able to find like 2 or 3 or 4 papers in a similar kind of work up over there. And if you continue it for let's say about 20 good papers in your area, you have about 100 references. You might have read about 100 papers up over there. And out of those 100 papers, you will be able to figure out that at least 50 of them are actually closely related, and this is what I should be reviewing, right? And from those 50, you may be able to find out, okay, 20 basically support my hypothesis, 20 basically argue it against it, and then there are about 10 people who are like being clueless, and they are basically keeping their ideas pretty much open to interpretation up over there. So you can use all of these to present your arguments in your literature review section up over there, right? So ask yourself every time. So find out all the sources up there, collate all the relevant sources, and then ask yourself what research and theory is there on my topic, right? So I'm going to ask it. The moment I ask it, I will search for it and I will get some information up there. What are the key sources? Are there books? Are there articles? Are there an existing thesis available up over there? Who are the main theorists and researchers, right? So who are the leading thought-provoking authors up over there? So let us go ahead and look into that, and how the problem has been investigated over a period of time. So these are the questions that you need to ask in order to make sure that your uh, writing part is going to be a more streamlined and more structured up over there, right? So this is what you need to do. Now, the question comes that like, should I need to read everything? Can I read everything up over there, or where to start, right? So the answer is that you don't need to read everything, and you cannot actually read everything up over there, right? So I'll tell you again. We had discussed a little bit on this previously as well, how you basically need to proceed with reading a specific article up over there. So you need to basically follow a certain like selection criteria, or we call it as a rejection criteria up over there, right? Every time I start with a paper, right? So let me go ahead and give you a paper up over there. Let's say, okay, so this is a particular paper, right? The way I'm going to start with is, right, so I will be basically looking at the abstract up over there, right? So a lot of papers are different, publishers are going to have a different kind of approach towards writing a paper. And Elsevier, let's take a very standard one. If I have it from Elsevier up over there, growing science, in the science, Sage, Wiley. Okay, Wiley may also fit in the same criteria. Yeah. So you can see that there is going to be an abstract up over there, right? So you will find an abstract up over there. Again, this may not be a very standard work up over there, but again, I'm just trying to give you a brief idea. How do I need to look at? So the first step of reading, right? Or the first step of like, where do I start? I look out for the title up over there, right? So is title closely matching to my idea, right? The first decision making criteria. If it matches, if it looks interesting and relevant to me, I go through it. Otherwise, I'm basically going to reject this particular paper straight away, right? So that is one. Second step, if I selected this paper, then I basically look at the abstract part of over here. So that basically becomes my second approach of over here, second selection criteria. If this tells me that yes, it is actually a good work up there, or maybe it is relevant to my area, then I look at the third selection criteria. I immediately go to the conclusion section of this particular area up over there, right? So if there is a conclusion section up over there, 4.1. Okay, again, this paper is not written in a proper way. So let's figure out if there is a conclusion section in this one. So you will find that conclusion and further research. So I will look into this, and then I will try to figure out. So this basically becomes my third decision making criteria up over there, right? That is conclusion relevant to what I was trying to do? Is he supporting my argument? Is he presenting certain argument which can basically help me out? Is for future research, right? And the limitation that he might have quoted, is it going to give me some kind of research gap available to me? If it does, in that case, I will go ahead and read that paper again. And now the next part of decision making is going to be the fourth one, that how have they arrived at it, right? So they will basically go to the methodology section, research methodology section, and then you will basically take it up and then read the entire paper up there. So every stage you are rejecting the paper, because you cannot read all the 100 papers all together. You cannot do that. And if you are very sure that you cannot do that, then you should not be basically attempting that as well, right? So you read the papers, or you read the articles in a very systematic way up over there, right? So and try to apply the rejection process of selecting the articles up there. Every stage, be critical. Is it relevant? Then only you read it. Otherwise, you skip that part over here. Some cases you might have skipped an important article as well. So there either the peer reviewers or their your supervisor or your doctoral advisory committee members may be able to help you that okay, you missed out on this one, you should go ahead and look into this as well, right? So this is the role of the doctoral advisory committee or the supervisors available up there. If you are sending it to a journal, that is what they also suggest, right? So these are the three papers, just look into it. Most of the time they do it for self citation as well, but yes, that you might have missed out and you can basically bring in those arguments up over there, right? So this is how and this is where you basically need to start up, right? So this is what you need to basically do. Okay, so any questions that we have on this, right? So now reading part, we should be very clear now. Now we should basically look at the writing part of the thesis up there. Okay, any questions that we have, let me know.
Sir,
Yeah, please.
sir, you have quoted. So, shall we quote our books? I mean, can we add books into references? I mean,
Yes,
in the
yes, you
previous
can.
slide.
Yeah, you can
Okay, sir.
you can quote your books as well. So like are there any books and articles? So books and articles are usually peer reviewed, and these are basically like open for scrutiny at all point of time, right? And these are again, nobody will, so a book is usually written by an expert, right? Like in most of the cases, that is a general assumption that a book is basically being written by an expert, and that is why you get a lot of credibility if you are have written a book or if you are basically writing a book as well, right? So books and articles are the basic key resources that I need to basically look into. Books are perfectly fine. Books, there is no issue at all. Books are the source of knowledge, right? So that is how we have been taught, right? So from class 1 till PhD, right? So we have been reading various books up over there.
Sir, see about the journals, sir. People
Mhm.
talk about various journals. They see,
Mhm.
is it that we have to pay, sir, because that particular
No,
water?
so I'll help you out with that, right? So, in should I? So there are a couple of things, right? So where do I get these journals, right? And how do I identify the quality of these journals up over there, right? So again, someone had basically helped us with understanding that okay, you can figure out the quality by learning about the rankings and then impact factors up over there. So what are these rankings? So how do I identify? So this basically leads us to the writing aspect. So when we are writing it out, right? So like, should we include that kind of journal which is of high quality or which is of a poor quality up over there? So what all that I need to basically look into. So the first question, where should I basically look into those journals up over there, right? So where am I going to look into those journals? Yeah. Okay. So this is the place where I should be basically looking out for those journals up over here. So where is it? Yeah. So this is the first site that I want you guys to basically look into. So this is ABDC rated or like ABDC ranking site, that is Australian Business Dean Council, like journal quality list, right? So I'm looking out for journals from this area up there, right? Now this will basically provide me that what quality of rating that this particular journal has got, right? So they basically categorize the entire thing in four categories up over there. So it is basically in A star, A star, A, B, and C. So these are the four categories in which their all journals are basically linked up there, right? So you need to figure out. So for citing your work, right? If you're doing a good work up there, you should look into any of those works which are either in A or A star category. B star, try to minimize the exposure as much as possible, and C, try to avoid it completely if possible up over there, right? So this is something that you should avoid, and especially from a thesis perspective up over there, right? Now this also depends upon what kind of journal you are submitting when you are trying to submit your papers up over there. So if you are submitting to an A rated journal, make sure that whatever references that you have got, that should be basically from A and A star up there. So you should be always looking at the level up there. If I'm looking at B, I need to basically submit the articles or reference those articles which are from B, A star, and A up there. I cannot basically look into C until unless it is absolutely necessary and not much of work has been done. Then only I need to basically include C. Otherwise, I'm not basically going to do that. Right. So this is the first place where you get a list of journals up there, and this tells you. So this ranking, that is A star, B, and C. So A star is the top rank. Then we have A. Then we have B, and then we have C. So this is the ranking that we need to follow, and this is how I identify the journal quality up there. And this is coming from a particular journal up there. So a particular journal quality list, that is ABDC journal quality list. So on this particular website, you will be also able to find, like, you just type in the name of the journal and you hit enter. It will tell you the basic quality of the journal over here as well, right? So this is the rated C rated journal, and I will be able to identify that, okay, this is the journal, or this is what this particular journal is all about, right? So if I look at, let's say, health services insight, if it is, I found a journal up there, and if it is not available, in this case, there are no journals in that match parameter, then I should be avoiding citing those kind of journals up over there, right? It may appear to be a good journal, it may be a sage and so on, right? So the one that we took, this one is basically, I think it is a sage journal up over there. Yeah, so this is a sage publication up over there, but still I will try to avoid it if it is not there in my ABDC list up over there, right? So sage journals are good journals, but still I'm going to avoid it if I'm sending it to a paper or a journal which is listed in ABDC up over there, right? So this is one approach of maintaining the quality. Now the second one that I need to basically look into is a journal quality, right? That is a ABS is the journal quality list that we look at, right? So it needs to be in the ABS ranking, and the ABS ranking is basically given in this particular format, right? So you have 4 star, then you have 4, 3, 2, and 1 up over there, right? So make sure that this is similar to your ABDC ranking up there, and there will be a quite commonality up over there, but the quality is basically going to be limited to 4 star, 4, 3, and on certain occasions still 2. So it is very much like A star, A, then you have B, and then you have got C up over there, right? So this is something very similar, but till 2, many of the good quality journals are, this is more stringent than your ABDC up over there. So you will be basically looking at till 2, it is kind of fine, but below 2, if you are going to publish something, so a lot of people are going to ignore those kind of journal submissions in that case, right? So this is second place where I basically look into the quality of journals, and what quality of journal that I'm going to find up there. Another place that we need to basically look into is the Scopus list, right? Because our requirement from most of the universities is that whatever we are publishing, that needs to be from the Scopus list up over there, right? So you can download the entire Scopus list, or you can basically go ahead and enter the title up over there. Let's say I'm research in international business and finance up over here, right? So this is one. So I will go ahead and look into it, right? If it is listed in Scopus, that means that it is a kind of okay journal for me. Now, what is the site score and other things that we will look into? So first, we are looking at only the source of the journals, and we are also looking at what category, or what even in the Scopus list, you find that it is Q1, Q2, Q3, or Q4 journal. That is quartile 1, 2, 3, and 4 journals up there. So Q1 and Q2 are basically a good journals, or good category of journals up over there, and then Q3 and Q4 may be lagging behind up there. It will also provide you the ranking right over here, right? So where it is it basically lying. So out of the 99 journals in this one, right, it is ranked at 12th number up there. So that essentially tells you that this is a pretty good journal in that case, right? So this is another place where we are going to look at those journal list up over there. So remember the ABDC, then we are looking at ABS, and then the third one that we are looking at is basically Scopus up there. Now, one of the very most prominent one is basically FT50 journal up over there, right? So FT50, the list of all the journals up there. So this basically gives you that all the journals from the various domains of management, right, medicine, and so on, right? It gives you that. And if it is coming from this one, that is a highly reputed journals that you have. Majority of the journals that you are going to find it over here, they will be either ABDC A star, or they are going to be ABS 4 star up over there, right? So that is where you have, that basically tells you the quality of journal that you have in this particular domain up there. right? So you can look at the list up over there, FT50, you can Google for it and you will be able to basically get that list, and that basically gets updated almost every year, right? That whether this particular journal was good or that journal was bad, that will be told to you in that case, right? So Financial Times top 50 journal list up there, they will give you the management domain, like which domain that you are looking for, accounting, entrepreneurship, management, human resources, and so on. So try to have majority of references from this area. If you have not finalized your idea yet, then you should basically look into these journals and then try to look at what are the recent works in which they are basically working, right? Or what are the recent areas of their publication, because whatever they are going to publish, that will be a very latest work and a lot of people will be basically following up on the same. So that basically also creates a way to start about your idea as well. So I look at these kind of journals and then I basically pick it off that, okay, this will work. The title looks interesting. Let me go ahead and read that journal, and then let me go ahead and read that article and see if it basically fits into my research area or not, right? So this is what we basically go ahead and look into it, right? So these are the most prominent ones that we have. So there are many others which we have, but this is the globally accepted list that we are looking at, right? So ABDC A star, then we are looking at ABS, and then we are looking at FT50 up there, right? So these are the three. Then Scopus is something. So Scopus is often compared with C rated journals in majority of the cases. So C and Scopus are that is ABDCC and Scopus and ABS1 are treated on par in majority of the cases up over there, right? So this is what we need to understand before we are referring them up.
Two questions, sir. Question number, what is it? FT? What is that? What are
FT, that is Financial Times.
what is this financial
Times, yeah, Financial
okay.
Times.
Okay. And then,
Okay.
sir, is it that we have to pay money for accessing those journals?
Yeah, so I'll be coming and helping you out with those, right? So I'll let's say, so one way to find the journal is basically Google Scholar, right? So if you have access to those things, right? So Google has done a pretty wonderful job. If you look at this particular website, you will not have access to that journal, right? You may not be able to download it. You start asking for the full article, right? You ask for the PDF up over here. You will say that you cannot get it, you will have to pay for it up over here. Okay, so this one it came up pretty easily, but majority of the cases it will not come up in that case. Let's say look at this Springer up over there. Until unless it is not open access, you will not be able to get this up over there. If I'm trying to download this PDF, again it's coming up. So I'm looking at this value up there. So whenever you are finding these links over here, you are having access to it from the various sources. It may be coming from the same source, it may be coming from an alternate source up over there, and therefore you will be able to access some of them over here. In case if you are not able to access it, right? So let's say if I'm looking at this particular paper and I'm trying to access this paper's full document up over here. Okay, let's say this is the article. Okay, so I'm not having full access to it, and it doesn't show full access to PDF up there, right? So do I have it? Abstract methodology approach. So it doesn't give me the full access over here. So what can I do? I can do something about it, right? So I will usually use this copy of this link address, and I have got another source up there, that is SCI. So Sci-Hub is the name of the place up there, right? So scihub.do, or it is SE. So it has got a lot of extensions up over there. So this is one place which brings you a lot of papers free of cost to you up there. In college, you may not have access to it, right? But outside college, you will have access to these journals up there, right? So let me find one. Okay, this is, I think this is a fresh 2021, so it may not be available in the print form immediately. So let me give you a research. Okay, let me try to find out my own article up there. Trading transaction velocity. Okay, so I'm looking at this article, right? So this is my article up there, and I'm basically trying to access it. right? So it will basically ask me to purchase it, right? So what I will do, I will go ahead and copy this particular link up over here, copy link address, right? I will go to this Sci-Hub, okay? I will paste it over here, and most probably I will be able to get my PDF article available up over there, right? So you will be able to get either the exact manuscript over there, or you will get the accepted manuscript version up over there, right? So you get this information available to you in that case. So this is one very good source where you can basically get an article from there, right? And it is free of cost. So this is the basic idea for this one, and that is why a lot of journal or the publishers are basically trying to ban this particular source up there. So this is the second way of finding. So first way, look at Google Scholar. If you have got a link up over there, right? So where did Google Scholar go? Okay, Scholar. If you look at Google Scholar up over there, right? Uh, Algorithmic trading, right? So you, if you have access to these links, right, so you can click on these and you will have access to them up over there. If you do not have some of them links available, in that case you can basically go ahead and put it in this Sci-Hub up over there, and you will be able to basically get some of those articles from there, right? So that is another place where we are going to look at.
SCA have, I want to know URL of this, sir. What is this?
Yeah, I'll be sharing it with you, everyone. So that is sci-huf.do.se. So all those are basically various extensions. So I think I have put it over here. Sci-Hub reference. Okay. SCI. Right, so this is the one. So getting your journal article, so you should be able to get it from here. Now the last two extensions that you are looking at .se, that is very much flexible. So you can put do, you can put tw, you can put like another one that is, okay, TW is not working right now. Since this is a free and open source, a kind of a hacking into the publication site, so they keep blocking it as well most of the times up over there, right? So you need to figure out which one is basically working for you. So if SCI Hub, uh, so the most prominent one that I basically use is either TW or SE, right? So these are the two which are very prominent up over there. So either use SE or you use DO, right? Or you use any other, like, so there will be many more up there. If you are not able to find the extension, just Google for it and you will be able to find that, right? So look, search for Sci-Hub, right? Without this, you'll find a lot of links up over here, right? So removing barriers in the way, if you look at it, it is taking you to DO up over here. You will look at this page, it will tell you a lot of different domains that they have up there, like, so it should basically give you the list up over here. It is not telling you right now. Yeah, so you can see that it is io.cc.bz, right? So some of those which you can basically get into up there, right? So you will be have certain other extensions
Where,
to these one.
sir, where is that last suffixes are it shown? You were showing somewhere else.
This one, so do, the last two over here. You are seeing this, right? Do over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
In, okay. 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 So this is another place that you are basically going to look at now. One more place that you can basically go into and look for it is our own library that we have, right? So for our own learning resources that we have, let us look at this research, Geetam Journal Management, right? So there's a library that we have. So recently we have subscribed to a lot of journals for us, right? So if you look into our like e-library link that we have, right? So there you will be able to find out the various journals, and we should be able to access those journals pretty much easily in campus up over there. So most probably it is going to work primarily in campus, otherwise it is not working up there, right? So maybe this one is not working as of now. Okay, so this is the third source up there. So first one, Scholar. The second one, you have got Sci-Hub. The third one is basically your own library up there. And the fourth one that you can basically work on is So whichever author is available there, right? So the authors that you are basically going to look at, right? So those authors, you can write it to them and they will be very happy to share their articles with you, right? Let's say if this is a author up over here, so search for these authors up there. Most of the cases, if they are the corresponding author, their email IDs will also be provided up over there, right? So you will find their email IDs, and a lot of times nowadays they are basically linking it with your ORCID ID as well, and you will be able to see the author details in that case, and you will have access to their email IDs as well, right? So you can basically go ahead and send them an email, and then you can basically go ahead and ask them for the details up over here, right? So this is what you can look at. This is where you can do that. And majority of the cases, whenever you are asking somebody to share how to link ORCID to Scopus, right? So okay, so we'll look into that. So we'll get that also done. Good. So there is one question which is coming up: how do I link ORCID to Scopus up there, right? So we will do that in a certain amount of time. Hold on. Okay, so these are the four basic ways in which you can basically get the articles. Now if you are not getting it from your university still up there, look out for someone who is an alternative university, maybe your friends, maybe your colleagues, right? Maybe some other researcher, and ask them up, do you have access to this particular paper at your library, or do you have an access, and they will be happy to help you up over there, right? So in case if you are not finding something, so you let me know, I will try to help you out with certain journals or journal articles up over there, right? So because of, like, I know that IBS has certain set of journals available, IMT has certain set of journal access available, Geetam has certain set of journals access available. So I can ask a couple of people here and there, and they will be able to help us with those journal articles up there. So the two things, like what we are reading and what we are writing, right? So where do I find those journals, and how do I identify the quality of the journals? So these are the specific ways you basically find the journals and also identify the quality of the journals as well. Now, another way in which the quality of these journals are identified is known as your journal rank, or your basically citation rank up there, right? So if you look at this citation index up there, right? So you'll find there is an impact factor will be available. You will have citation score available up there, and then SGR ranking. So all those are basically going to help you. So anything which is more than one is kind of a very good citation index for a particular journal up there, right? So if it is 1.307, it is a very good journal available up there, or it is a very good book that is available up over there, right? So this is another way in order to figure out the quality of the journals which are available up there, right? Okay, so these are the ways in which we basically
Sir,
find out. Yeah,
we have to SCI major. What is this link, sir?
I'll be sharing this document, so don't worry about it. So this document will have it. Sci-Hub is the link that we have. I'll just copy and paste it in the chat for the time being, so that everyone can make a note of it. Right. So this is the one. I'll be sharing the entire document with everyone over email. So don't worry about it. You will get all these resources. I have collected these resources for you guys only. Right. So you will have access to all of these. Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so this is how. So you basically get to know about your citation index. You get to know about, like for example, we were looking at Scopus, right? So you have got this cite score. That is another one. You get that citation index up over there. The other one that we had, yeah, this is the one, right? So you are looking at this, right? So SJR up over there, right? So this is again something that basically helps you in understanding that it is basically a good quality journal. Then there is another thing which is basically known as impact factor of a particular journal, right? Many a times you will be able to find the impact factor right away on their journals page, but in some cases you need to figure out an impact factor from a certain website up there. You may be able to find out even from JCR up over there. So they will provide you the journal citation reports. You may have to log in and then create that. They will be able to provide you how much is the impact factor available to them. For certain journals, if you just Google for them, there also you will be able to find that this particular journal has got a decent impact factor, or you will be able to find those items there. So let's just try to Google for this particular journal. and see if it provides me the impact factor up over there, right? So in some cases, so usually on the right hand side, a page will appear, and there you will have idea of like what is the impact factor. Let's look at impact factor up over there. Okay. So let's say, right, so you can see over here, right, so this is one place, so impact factor is 1.62. This is SDR that we had, that is 0.647, H index, and all these, right? So this is what basically we have in this case, right? So impact factor, SJR, and then citation index. So these are the other three items which basically help to identify if a journal is of good quality or not up there, right? So that should answer all the questions pertaining to quality of the journal. How do I find the journal, and how do I basically access articles of the journal over there, right? Any questions that we have, let me know. So this is what should basically tell us where to start and how do I basically go ahead and look at it. Okay. Any other questions that we have immediately, let me know. Okay, so now we will start focusing. So now we have got the resources from where we are basically going to read, right? Now I'm basically going to move towards the writing part, right? So how do I write these literature review part, right? So how, when I'm saying that we have to have a critical thinking, where do I imbibe this critical thinking even in my writing part as well? So is reading only important, or is writing also important up over there, right? So this is what I need to basically look at, right? So you need to figure out what are the main ideas up there, right? So figure out the okay, figure out the main ideas up over there, right? What have changed over a period of time, right? How the problem has been defined. If it is very clearly defined, you can follow the same footsteps and define your problems in the same way. Are there any trends and patterns across literature, right? So if there is a pattern that people are slowly and steadily becoming reluctant to cite a certain article, or maybe reluctant to take a side of an argument up over there, so you need to be able to find that, and accordingly you will have to put across your thoughts as well. What are the assumptions that they have taken and that they have used, right? And are there any agreements or disagreements between the theorists on my topic, right? So you need to figure that out before you start writing up there. And once you know that these are the two sides of the coin that I'm dealing with, my writing will basically improve, and I will basically start thinking of that, yes, this person, whenever I require something, so this is more or less a kind of a smart work that you do. So if I need a support of my argument, I'll say that, okay, scholar X or the author X basically supports my argument, and I'll put his reference as a citation up over there. Right? If I need to portray an argument which is against me, so I will be basically putting the scholar Y arguments up over there, and that is what we are basically going to put there. If I need support, I will say that, okay, this is my argument is based upon this school of thought, and these are the authors who are basically supporting a similar kind of arguments up there. So it will basically build upon the conclusions of the existing authors, and it will confirm the, or it will basically try to confirm the findings of the existing authors up over there. In certain cases, they will have certain reservations. They may not go with X and Y, that is, they may not make it crystal clear. So you may use it, those also, for stating that there are certain reservations basically told by certain authors, and therefore I need to basically figure that out of my curiosity, and then that will basically give a contribution to my existing literature up there, right? So that is what I'm trying to do in this case, right? So think critically, right? So find the, again, so this is the same: reputation, strength and weaknesses, evidence lacking, inconclusive or limited, and what will you add to the topic, right? So these are the things that you need to ask before you start writing up there. So when you are writing it up there, right, so that writing is basically a story, right? So right from introduction till the conclusion, what you are trying to do, you are basically trying to build a story, and that story needs to be appealing to your readers up over there. And who are your prime readers? So your prime readers are basically either your peer reviewers up over there, or they are basically the researchers in the same domain, or your supervisor or doctoral advisory committee members, or external advisor up there. So all those are your readers up there. So make sure that whatever you are trying to put across in your thesis work, that is very impelling and that is very compelling up there, and you write it in a very lucid manner, so that everything is connected to one another. So you basically give a hint that, okay, this might happen up there. Right? So you are basically going to create a kind of a curiosity. You're going to tell that, okay, this is what I'm looking for, and we may be able to find it in due course of action up over there. Right? So this is what we basically try to. So my thesis work is basically a story where I need to be persuasive, I need to find support, and often I need to contract the existing literature as well, and often I need to present a contradicting view to the existing literature as well, and I should basically find support for both of them from the existing literature. Right? So that is what we basically try to get it from there. Okay. Another thing that we can basically look at it. So before we are writing, again, this should have been brought in when we were trying to, or how do I basically read a paper itself up over there, right? So another way of reading a particular paper is just trying to figure out, let's say, one word. Yeah. So before reading a paper, you need to basically figure out, like, is the theme relevant to me or not, right? So how do I basically understand or basically decide, should I basically read the entire paper or not, right? So that is what I'm trying to decide in this case. So I will go ahead, right? Let's say I'm going to find a research paper up there. Let's say this is one paper, right? So this is circular sessions. So let's say if this is one such paper that I have, so nowadays your PDF can basically open with Word documents as well, right? So you should basically try to open that up using Word document. Let's say that you downloaded any article from the web, and then you are basically trying to convert it into a Word document, right? I don't know what is inside that particular argument up over there, right? So what I'm basically going to do is that I'm basically going to copy and then paste that Word document in this particular link over here. So wordart.com. I haven't read the paper. I may have just found that the title looks pretty like compelling to me to look into it. I will use that. I converted it into Word and I basically pasted it up over here, right? I will remove the common words like these, A and B and so on. I will remove the numbers from there because they are not going to provide me all the critical aspects to it. I will import them, and then I will try to visualize them in the form of a word cloud to figure out what are the core themes that they are basically discussing on it, right? That is what I'm trying to figure out. You can find that this is paper or this article is primarily working towards trading, algo orders, market exchanges, latency, members, and so on. So without reading it, I can figure out that, okay, this is the core theme or these are the broad themes which people are basically writing in that particular letter or that particular article up over there, right? So this is what we are looking at. So let's say like this is another article that we have got, right? So let me go ahead and download it. Okay, let me put it on downloads. Okay. So this is green HRM. So I will be able to figure that out. So that is before reading a particular paper. Basically, I'm trying to decide, should I basically read the paper or not, or should I basically skip this particular paper. So this is another tool that basically helps you achieve this objective in this case, right? So let the paper get open. Okay. Okay. Now I can go ahead and let's say that I start with this introduction. I copy and paste it, whatever I'm going to get it over here till the end. Let's try to figure out what is the core theme that we are going to build upon in this case. Okay. Okay, let's keep it till this particular area up over here. Let's say this is what we have. Okay. Okay, so I'll do the same exercise, go to import, right? Remove this, copy and paste it, right? Import the words, and then you can basically visualize the same again, right? So this is something that gives you a brief idea without even reading the paper. You know that, okay, this is the theme. And if you feel that your important aspects that you are basically looking for, if those are appearing up there, then you should basically go ahead and use that. You can feel that like employees, waste management, right? So training, issues, environmental, right? So green general education. So all these are basically important for me. So if these are basically related to you, in that case you basically decide to basically let me go ahead and read into the article, and otherwise I'm basically going to skip the article up there. So prior to these web enabled sources up there, right, so people used to use R programming or Python programming up there, and then they used to figure out like, is it matching the sentiment, is it matching the what are the key themes that we are basically trying to figure out. And then they used to use those complex works up there, right? So I could have used like similar, this is very similar. So I, from a particular journal, I could figure out certain keywords, and I can basically figure out which one has the highest frequency. You can see that support is basically having higher frequency, consequences has two, all these are having two, these are basically having one up over there. So I can use this. So now I'm using multiple tools up there. I can present it in various different formats, that how the frequency is appearing, right? So what are all the keywords available up there. Now this is a pretty easy tool to do with the help of this particular website as well, right? So this also assists you in reading it smartly rather than reading the entire paper again up over there, right? So this is something that again you can utilize up there. Okay. Now, what you are getting there, that may not be 100% accurate, right? And that is where, when you identify that this paper is something that I have to read, you need to ensure that you are reading that specific paper line by line, very holistically, and presenting your thoughts very critically up over there, right? So this is something which is very important. So once you identify it, then you basically read it critically, and then you basically start building your story. And when you are starting to build your story, right, so you start with an overview at all point of time, right? What is the story trying to tell you in a nutshell, right? What is that? So basically you are trying to create a background, right? So remember, when you are telling a story to your kid, what do you say? Once upon a time, this is what it used to be. Then you get to the story, right? So this is what basically the overview basically tells you to do. Decide on how you are basically organizing on the chronology of events that you are basically going to put across. In literature review, we are citing, remember, we are citing about like 15 or 20 papers in entire literature review. All of those need to be connected to one another, right? So it should not be the first article should not be randomly put on top, and the second article should not be randomly put second. If there is a flow of thought from the first article to the second article, then only that particular order should be followed. Otherwise, you need to figure out the binding, the thread, which basically combines these articles up over there. I'll show you how this is done, and I will also show you how I had done it in my thesis work up over there as well, right? So we'll do that. Now, look at this, right? So I'm basically trying to figure out the methodology. I'm trying to figure out the chronology, right? Combination of some of these. Use the headings for different sections up over there in the literature review. If you are, let's say that you are looking at three different perspectives of your particular work, right? So let's say I'm looking at advertising, I'm looking at attraction to the product, I'm looking at the quality of the product, I'm looking at the brand value or perception of over there. So I will keep my articles, or I will keep my review of literature pertaining to these three topics, and these three will be separate to it up there. And with every literature that you are reviewing over there, highlight the findings of the same and highlight the gaps that you have found up over there. So this is the most important, because you are reviewing the literature for finding the gaps up over there, right? Now, let us look at realistically how basically it is done. Now, a lot of us may be aware of what basically Shodh Ganga does, right? So, are you aware of Shodh Ganga?
Yes, sir.
Right? So Shodh Ganga is basically a reservoir of your Indian thesis up over there, right? So you can search for any thesis, or like somebody who has worked on a particular work, you should be able to search it up over there. So let's say that I want to look out for my article, or maybe I want to find if there is any thesis in my area of work up there. So let's say my area was algorithmic trading up over there. So I will search for it, right? And let me see if my name appears up over there, right? So there you have my thesis up there. I will start accessing it. And these are the chapters and other things. You will get the details of like completed year. You will get the detail from where did I graduate, who was my supervisor, title, and so on, and how do you cite it up there as well, right? So chapter number 2 is basically my literature review up there. So chapter number 1 is my like introduction. Chapter number 2 is my literature review, and chapter number 3 is basically my objectives and hypothesis up over there. So when I'm looking at literature review, so look at it how basically I write it up over here. So I start with a brief overview up there, right? I basically am trying to create a kind of a framework that basically will guide me towards attaining my objectives up there. So what am I basically going to do in this case, right? So we say that the existing literature on algorithmic trading is mostly with respect to quote driven markets, right? So I'm trying to build a kind of framework. My market that I'm looking at, that is basically an order driven market, right? So I'm basically saying that okay, the existing literature is primarily with respect to quote driven market, and there is a lack of evidence on algorithmic trading in emerging market like emerging order driven economies up over there. So there is a lack. Like very clearly stating that there is a lack up there, and considering the various differences in the market structure of the two different kind of economies, it becomes very important that we need to study that with respect to an emerging market like an India up over there, right? So I'm basically building the story up there, right? So this is nothing but like once upon a time kind of story building exercise that we are trying to do over here. After that, I basically lay out what we are basically going to do in this entire literature review. So we present our literature review in 3 sections, right? So remember that said that like create a chronology, right, and use headings for different sections up over there. So this is what we are trying to do. So try to create the 3 sections up there. So what does the first section does? So it discusses the impact of algorithmic trading on liquidity. Second section discusses the impact of algorithmic trading on volatility, and the third section discusses the impact on price discovery aspect up there. So this is the first section that I create, right? So this is how I build upon it, right? So this is the first aspect of writing the literature review. So creating an environment, creating the context in which you are basically working towards it. And I haven't started the review of literature yet, right? Because I haven't cited any of the paper. All that I have done, these are my words up over here, which is basically subsequently stating that there is a need to research, and this is why I'm basically reviewing the literature up over there. And this is what I'm basically trying to put across. Now, I'm again, so when I start with liquidity, now my argument, so previously it was with respect to the title, that entire algorithmic trading up over there. I'm basically talking about the entire setup. This time, I'm basically going to talk about only the liquidity aspect of algorithmic trading up over there, right? So this is what I'm basically trying to bring in, right? So in quote driven markets, market makers contribute to the liquidity of the market up there, right? So this is again, so what I'm doing, so I'm again providing a once upon a time kind of a information up over there, trying to build around the theme on which my literature review is going to be presented up over here, right? So this is what I'm doing. This is whereas in order driven market, right? So I'm contradicting what is usually happening in the quote driven, and I'm saying that there is a substantial amount of difference up over there. In order driven market, limit orders are the main suppliers of liquidity, and it is known that AT has the ability to assimilate new information up there, right? And this should impact, I'm telling that passing on an information that this should impact and help providing liquidity instantly to the trader up there, right? Now, do I get a support to this particular argument or not? This is what I'm basically proposing with the help of the existing literature, right? So I find, so there needs to be a chronology. So this is the first to examine the impact up there, right? So whichever is the most relevant one to my way up there, right? So algorithmic trading was a new area at that point of time, right? So this was the first article which basically came in the 2011. So you can imagine how recent it was, right? And I basically presented with the respect to how it has appeared in the like in the academic research domain up there, right? So I basically state them. So these were the first to examine, and they suggest, right? So this is what they are suggesting. So I'm basically trying to figure out. They suggest that it has grown rapidly right? In this paper, they examine. So what they are doing, so this is the description part that we are talking about, right? Remember, we talked about the two part of writing the literature review. One, I describe what they are doing. Second part, I am critically reviewing what are the lacunas of their research up there. So I start describing what they have done, and you need to be a bit detailed on this, right? So especially the methodology part needs to be very detailed in this case, so that you have a very clear understanding of methodology that they have used there. So every time it is being used in the third person case, right? So they are using it, right? So it is being used up there. So it needs to be a passive a way of reflecting upon these statements up over there. So they use this as a proxy for amount of algorithmic trading. Now, if you do not know, or if someone doesn't know what is message traffic, you provide a basic information up there, right? That okay, messages are basically number of electronic messages per minute. That is what they basically used up there, right? As a proxy of algorithmic trading. The study was done in two stages. In the first stages, so they might not have written it that okay, the study is done in two stages, but by reading the paper, I could identify that at first they used graphical representation, and then in the second case they basically did the empirical work, and I can basically go ahead and write it in the same words up over there. It means whatever they are saying. So authors graphically examine if there are any trends, and I'm basically interpreting it. So my interpretations are coming up over there, right? It means if there is an increase in algorithmic trading, there should be a decrease in spread measures up over there, right? So I'm basically trying to interpret. So I'm describing at the same time simultaneously. I'm also uh, uh, like trying to describe it in my own words up over there. I'm looking into their methodology, where they collected the data, what collection of data that they use, right? So to establish the causality, so basically bringing the like methodology section up over there. So all these things that I'm basically doing it up over there. So bringing in the specific aspects of the methodology that they have done, right? And at the end, when entire thing is basically done, right? So they use something, and the results based on these, right, indicate an increased realized spread and decline in the price impact of there, right? So this is what they did, right? Now what is my analysis of that, right? So the critical review and finding of the gap part, right? So I use, though the study is seminal, right? So I'm basically saying that yes, it was the first paper, it was a very important paper, but right? So though the study is seminal with respect to this one and has examined this for the first time, it has few shortcomings. Remember, if you are not getting the shortcomings from these papers, you are not able to find out your gaps available up there. And you need to ensure that your shortcomings that you are highlighting, or the gaps that you are highlighting, that needs to stand out from the regular text. And that is why I have put it in the bold up over there. So anybody who is basically going through the literature, he goes that, okay, this is what they did, and this is the limitation that they had. Since it doesn't identify 80, they do not have a direct identification, so they lose out on the reliability. Validity of a proxy measure is a cause of concern. The current empirical work assumes that liquidity has been affected only because of 80. In real life, there may be other aspects up to it. So I am basically pointing out what all mistakes that they can basically have in their work up over there, right? So this is what I'm doing. They also acknowledge this shortcoming. So most of the times a good research paper will state the limitations of their work, right? But they do not provide any suggestions to address the problem. So that is also a gap that I'm identifying, and I'm proposing a solution to that problem in this case, right? One of the authors support the fact that such a measure proxy makes it difficult to directly examine when and how basically, and I'm stating that which particular author, right? So one of the authors, so this is what we are looking at, right? So this is basically making, I have used it in the reference as well, and I'm using the APA citation style in the footnote as well. One of the authors support the fact, right? So any one of these two authors are basically supporting that fact in there, and they are making a statement that it is difficult for doing this kind of work up there with the help of a proxy. Now this process will continue for all the literature. Now I'm also connecting the second literature up there. So it is again by the same author, the first author, in a collaboration with another author up over there, right? That was the first paper was by Hendershot and Riordan, right? This is again by Hendershot, and then some other people coming up over there. So similarly, this or like basically similar to this. So this is the first paper. There were where they identified this, Hendershot and Riordan. So the same person up there, but in a different paper up there, right? So similarly, they examine the relationship. So what am I trying to do? So I'm trying to connect a link between the two literature up over there to build the story in this case, right? I'm going to build the story. I'm going to describe what they did, right? If there is something which is missing up there, and if I do not know what does it mean, so I will provide certain footnotes. I will basically try to put something in bracket and then ensure that people are basically understanding the same up there. And at the end of that particular literature review, I will again go ahead and criticize those papers that, okay, this is what they did, right? So though the paper attempts to answer some of the questions raised, but there are several shortcomings up there, right? So the data set is based on just for 13 trading days. That means it has got, like, it is suffering from a small sample size in this case, right? So I'll basically figure out those, and then again we'll do that. I'll again go ahead and say that while this studies the relationship of this in the context of proxy of 80, that this article examines with respect to the Indian stock market, right? So I'm basically trying to relate it again, why it is required to study this article up over there, or why do I need to basically review there, right? Again, I provide the negative up there. Again, I am basically trying to put across another paper that basically comes up. So I try to relate, so the entire story is a bit more sequential, and that is how basically we need to proceed up there. Once I'm done with that, so this is the second section where it starts up now, right? And then there will be third section, and I will be basically ending up the entire section up there. Now in the first section you will find that there were many papers up there, but in the third section the number of literature is pretty much on the lower side. That is 2013. This is the first one paper up there. This is the second paper up over there, and that's it. So I did not have much paper in this case, right? So I just cited two papers which were very much relevant over there, and these are some of the best journal articles which are available in the market up there, right? So I'm citing those two only, and it has got only two research papers which has been literature which has been reviewed up there from whatever negative citations that I have found out, right? So that basically gives me the gap, research gaps up over there. And I need to fulfill these gaps with the help of the objectives that I'm basically going to bring in, right? So based on the gaps in existing literature, we identify the following objectives to examine the impact of ATM liquidity, right? That what was the gap? To object the address on our first gap as identified in literature, right? To again, let me look at the introduction if I'm specifying. Okay. In the introduction, do mention what is the motivation for your study. That is also very important, and this basically will lead you to the next step up there.
Sir,
Okay.
sir,
Yeah.
sir, if you don't mind, can you just show us step by step how did you go from South Ganga to this chapters?
Sure. So I basically started with the Shodh Ganga website. This is where we have, right? I'm going to search for articles. So there is a search bar up over there. You
One second,
search.
sir. One
Sure.
second, sir. I am just showing going to Shodh Ganga. Okay.
Yeah.
And then where
Okay.
did you go, sir? In Shodh Ganga?
There is a search thesis into. So you scroll down, you'll find a particular search bar available there.
Yeah. 1 second, sir.
Yeah.
Shodh Ganga. Where is yes, sir. Advanced search is there, sir.
Yeah. So just so there you need to basically put across any key title that you are looking at, right? So let's say I'm looking at a green.
Sir, the PDF file that you are looking,
Yes,
or
yes,
the
yes.
uh,
So I'm basically looking for a topic. If there is any thesis in the green HRM domain, I'm going to look for that, right? So you'll find that there are few people, green HRM and work life. So let's say I'm looking at this particular thesis. The person has done it from DIT University over there. This is the name of the guide, and this is the name of the researcher up over there, right? Now I need to look at the various pages that he has got up there, right? So you can basically go ahead and look into each of these. So
sir, this is what it is. Where did you go, sir? How did you come to this?
so just I went back to the number of people who are there, right? So I clicked on. So this is the thesis link that we have got. Thesis title link. I just click on this,
Okay, sir.
right? It will open up the link. Now this is a pop-up window which basically gives you the overview of the art, like thesis up there. Then you just need to scroll down over here, and then you will be able to find all the chapters 1, 2, 3, and so on. All those things basically are being provided up over here, right? So
Okay.
you look at
Sir,
so.
So
Yeah.
now you are referring to your titles, right? Your chapter, your study.
Yes,
How
yes,
did you get
yes.
into that? Because I wanted to just have a reference of it. How did you, what is that you type to get to that?
So you just need to click on the chapter one. You click on the chapter one, you get to the chapter one up there. For my thesis, if you have to go, you can look out for just the name as well. So if you look out for my research, let's say if you are looking out for Ritesh Kumar Dubey, right? You search for it, you will get the details over here, right? So
One
you
second, sir.
just,
1 second. Let me type it, sir.
sure,
Ritesh
sure, sure.
Kumar.
Okay, there are quite a lot of Ritesh Kumar up there.
Okay, 1 second, sir. I want to see what's your results. Okay, okay, sir. Which one you have to put?
Okay, this one is not giving you the exact name up there, so you can look out for. Okay, search for my title which I use. So algorithmic trading. So this is my title, my research work up there. I'm searching for this one.
Okay, sir. Let me
Okay,
try, sir. Let me
sure.
algorithmic try.
Right, yeah,
Algorithmic.
trading. Yeah,
1 second,
search for that.
Uh, algorithmic trading.
Okay,
Al, uh, I searched for it, sir.
yeah,
Yeah.
you search for it. So you will find the third article over there. This one, a study on the impact of algorithmic trading.
Yeah, I
Right.
clicked on it, sir.
Yeah. So you click on this. The pop-up will appear. Cross the pop-up. Then you
Now
will
you're,
be.
and now you are referring chapter 8, right, sir?
No, I'm right now. I was referring to chapter number 2, which was literature review. Chapter number 2 is the literature review.
Chapter number 2. Okay.
Yeah. So that is the literature review part up there. Right. So you
Sir,
look
can
at
we
this.
download this, sir? Can you download this for our reference?
Yeah. You can download it. So this is open available. So you click on this right hand side. The download button is there. You click on this. You save it, and you will be able to save it up there. Right.
Thank you, sir. I'm able to do. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, sure. Okay. So this is how you are basically going to write your literature review up there, right? So it needs to always have a critical review of the literature. You describe what is there, and then you basically criticize that, and that criticism will basically lead to your objective and gap identification that you have done, right? So based on the gaps, right? So these are the objectives that you are basically finding up there. Now these gaps are basically going to lead to your hypothesis formulation up there, right? And again, when you are trying to get your hypothesis right, so before writing your hypothesis, you present the arguments on both the sides. We are focusing in this particular discussion, we are focusing primarily on our literature review side. So we are not going to deal into this, but again, you can look into this. I will provide argument on both the pro and cons side of this like algorithmic trading and impact on liquidity, right? And then I will basically hypothesize it, and then I will go ahead and test for it up over there, right? So this is how you basically need to proceed up there, right? Now few tips for writing it very clearly up there, right? So make a very clear introduction up there, overview of the topic, aim of the review, and the structure up over there. Clear paragraph structure you should basically follow. Make sure the subject of your sentence is very clear up there, right? Don't assume knowledge. If you are saying something, right, so do not assume it, right? So for example, if I say high risk is equal to high return, right? Is it a correct statement or is it a wrong statement? Everyone, high risk is equal to high return, or high risk leads to high returns. Am I correct or am I wrong?
Depends on situation, sir. It may be either
No,
correct, either
no,
wrong.
no, there is no, it is either correct or wrong.
No, sir.
So take a side.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, right, sir.
It is right, right? Okay, everyone
Yeah.
We need
agrees
to
with me,
mention.
No, sir.
No,
We
sir.
need to mention who mentioned that word.
right? So my question over here is like high risk leads to higher returns. Am I making a right statement or am I making a wrong statement? Right?
No, sir, it's wrong.
My
Okay, it's wrong.
perception is right.
Oh, no, there is nothing about perception in this case. So no, you may be identifying that it is a wrong statement, but how do I make it right? Let's say if you are saying that it is a wrong statement, then make this statement right. How do I make this statement right?
Why I am saying right is when you are doing your trading, sometimes if you go with a high risk, definitely you will get with high returns, but you need to check out the flow, how it is going, the
What if I
market
make
situation.
losses? What if I make losses? I can
That
make
time
losses as well.
you need to maintain the situation between the buy
But
and sell.
the statement I made was higher risk leads to higher returns.
So
That means that
you
that
need
means you are
to
saying that
quote.
it is wrong.
No, I am saying right.
That
Actually, I
it
am saying
could be
right.
or
Why?
could not be,
Because
sir.
you
So could
you
be
need
and could
to
not be.
you
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
sir.
My suggestion is it could be or could not be, sir.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Vashda ma'am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. First of all, I said half it is correct and it is wrong. Why I am saying right, how I can made my statement correct is you need to quote some examples which proves you
No.
right.
No. In thesis, you cannot do that, right? So now we are talking about tips for clear writing in thesis. It should not be dependent upon someone's perception. It should not change based upon context to context up over there. That's why it is thesis, and that's why it needs to be very clearly written over there. So the question is, if it is a wrong statement, then how do I make this statement right? I do not need an argument that why it is wrong. I do not want that explanation. I want to convert this wrong statement into a right statement there. So frame this simple statement: higher risk leads to higher returns. This is the statement, right? Convert it into a right statement for me. So how will you do that?
It
By
may
taking
be assumed
consideration
returns,
of
sir.
the
No,
by
no,
taking
not
into certain parameters into
so.
consideration.
One very good suggestion basically came. Author suggested higher risk leads to higher return. So that is a good way of saying that. Right? So now I'm not taking a responsibility from my side, right? So I'm not assuming it. I'm giving that onus to the author up over there. So that is a good way to do it. But in
Yes,
this
sir.
context,
I said the same thing that somebody in some studies they
but
referred the same. That is
yes,
how you are saying the same. I said the
yeah.
same, sir.
Yeah, but in this particular context, that author suggested is not going to help because the statement is going to wrong. And if author suggested that, then he is also wrong in this case.
Means you will have proofs for that, right, sir?
That is what I am saying. So I do not need an explanation. Convert the sentence into a right sentence. So author suggested can help you in that, but in this particular context, it is wrong. Even if author suggested this way, then also it is a wrong statement up there. I will give you the correct answer, that is for sure. So any other suggestions that you have? So think of how do I make this particular sentence correct in this case.
It may be assumed returns, sir.
You are slightly on the correct path, but not exactly correct. Replace the assumed with expected returns, right? So higher
Okay.
risk
Yeah, I
leads
meant that,
to
sir.
higher higher risk leads to higher expected returns, and this basically becomes a kind of a universal truth. No author needs to suggest this because this is what we are looking at, right? So I'm expecting a higher return, but will I get it or will I not get it? That is completely depending upon the context which you were suggesting up there, right? But now my
So
statement basically becomes or makes it very clear up there that expectation is of a higher return up there.
yeah, it cannot be generalized. You mean to say?
Yes. So what
Yeah.
you right? So higher risk leads to higher return cannot be generalized, but what the correct form of that sentence that we have, right? So that is higher risk leads to higher expected returns. That basically can be generalized up over there, right? So this is what we are basically talking about in terms of clarity of writing up there. So do not assume, right? Do not assume that it is going to give you a higher return. And I'm just giving just a small example, right? So this is how I play with my MBA students in corporate finance class, right? So this is what I'm trying to do over here. So do not assume things up over there. Do not make a generalizable statement which you cannot back it up. If an author is there, he can back it up. It is perfectly fine. If you have exactly a correct form of sentence which gives you the constraints in which basically it operates, then basically it is a correct sentence up over there. And that is where you need to basically work on the clarity of writing part, right? So do not assume anything, do not generalize anything. which basically is being stated up there and which cannot be basically backed up in that particular case, right? So be objective and be balanced in your writing approach, right? If there are any key terminologies, right, so make sure that you always explain it and just ask yourself, does it basically make sense, right? So this is something that is again expected up over there, right? Then the last one, which is the most important one, use signposts posts to orient the reader up there, right? So I am writing the literature review, right? So I'm basically suggesting author said this, like they basically did this, they basically did that. So after a certain point of time, it becomes monotonous that yes, the author said this, so what? That is what my question is going to be. And that is where I'm going to use my signpost up over there. And that is what we did over here in this case, right? Uh, okay, this is the one, right? So the paper attempts to examine, but so this but is basically my signpost in this case. The paper attempts to examine the role of 18 price discovery, but the data set spans over just 13 days, right? So I'm basically telling that yes, they did this. So now the question will ask, so why are you planning to do it, right? So that is what we are trying to expect, right? Or your reviewer is basically planning to expect the same. So what, they have done it, so why should I do it, right? So you will try and answer using the signpost that yes, they did it, but these are the shortcomings of the particular paper that we have. So but is one particular shortcoming, right? Similarly, you will have however, though is another signpost that we have. Though this is what they have done, it has few shortcomings, right? Similarly, you may find somewhere however is basically so the paper attempts and but it suffers from certain shortcomings, right? Though this is there, uh, uh, the relationship between their volatility, though okay, there should be a comma over here. There are certain few things like nevertheless, although, right? So very good. However, yes, so that is what we basically need to bring in order to create a signpost up over there. So this is so what we are basically trying to do is basically I'm trying to create a certain kind of signpost that it doesn't become monotonous for the reader. I'm basically giving him a check that okay, yes, this is what they did, but this is the reason why I am basically going to do it, and this is the gap that I'm basically referring to in this particular case. And therefore it is very critical in writing your literature review, that is signposting up there, right? So begin as sentences with certain signposts if it is required, right? So use however, use yet, moreover, right? Indeed, similarity, right? So these two are basically going to support you in most of the cases. This will help you in adding something more to the existing work, and however and yet will allow you to contradict something what they have written up over there, right? So this is how you need to basically proceed in or making your writing bit more clear in this aspect of over here, right? So use that. Now apart from this writing part, right, so whenever you are writing there, right, so you will be basically using citation of existing literature, right? uh, okay, someone needs to, okay, Hassan is there, yeah, okay. So when you are writing your literature up over there, right, so what you need to basically do is that like you need to basically uh, uh, cite the existing literature or maybe certain other literature which is there in a specific form. So there are basically two types of citations that we basically follow. One is the integral and another one is non-integral part. So in the integral part, we basically start with the author's name and the year, and in the second part we are basically going to write the sentences in our own form, and in general we will basically tell that okay, this author supports my argument in this case, right? So this is what I'm doing. So this one, a direct work, what the author says. In this one I say that both students and uh, tutors and students often lack explicit, so I'm making a generalized statement up over here, but I'm backing it up with a particular statement or basically a author's citation up over there. So these are the two citation styles that you basically need to follow in your literature review as well, right? So this is what you need to do. And the last part, when you are finishing off your literature review, because most of the times you will finish off your literature review and that will be pending for a minimum of about like 4 months to 6 months up over there, because then you will move on to your like methodology and analysis, right? And then what will happen in the meanwhile, right? So people will keep writing some of those things and new papers will come up, right? So literature is evolving, and whatever you did, you should not basically you do now and then forget about it, right? So it is constantly evolving. So before submitting it for reviewer, right, so make sure that you get more papers up over there, right? So if you search for more papers, because when it comes to review to me, right, so what I will do, so I will figure out that particular key term up over there, and then I'll search for is there any new article in that field. So the reviewer, the external reviewer or the peer reviewer for journal papers, they are also going to do the same up over there, right? So they are also going to look into the same aspect. So you need to constantly look at your evolving literature, and in case before, just before submission of your thesis, right, make sure that you have looked at the review of literature again, and if something has got added up, you basically add up in your literature review section over there. Otherwise it will come up as a comment from the reviewer side that you missed out on this particular work, and your complete review process of thesis may get delayed by another couple of months in that case, right? So this is something that you would like to avoid in most of the cases, right? So clear steps of writing a literature review, if I look at it, so plan, reading and research, then analyze, then draft, and then keep on revising it as and when the changes are happening up over there, right? So this is something that you need to follow in most of the cases up over here, right? So this is what we have, and any questions that you have. So I want to show you a small clip up over here, which will be of about like 2 to 3 minutes, which I want to basically focus on that what needs to be written and how basically it needs to be written. Okay, so let me unshare it so that you can hear the audio again from my side. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions.
Sir, if you don't mind, actually, because of internet issues, I couldn't able to listen this word art you created for.
Sure,
Can
I'll
you
show it.
please?
I'll
Yeah.
show it again. I'll show it again, ma'am. Not a problem. Okay. Now, how do I write it? So I'll show you how basically it needs to be written with the help of this particular link up over here. So
Key thing is
I
now you've got to think about perspectives of topically on your research, a second as it or report. Second, the
yeah. So this is
dialogue of the
just
review. There are two key elements. One is a descriptive or reporting element where you talk about what happened. You describe what the author has found, what they discussed, what they did. It's an account. The second crucial aspect of the literature review is an interpretive or critical element, the dialogue, where you ask and answer questions of the text. You analyze, you interpret, you synthesize, you bring together information. The second part is super important because if we just stay at the first part, the descriptive reporting element, we run the risk of having our writing grounded in a shopping list style of writing where we're saying, he noted, he found, she did this, she discovered. It becomes a list of ideas rather than an interpretation or a treatment of ideas, which is what a review is. So, how do we do this? How do we move our writing from the descriptive to the interpretive? Look at this example. Take 30 seconds to read it and look at what's going on. What you can probably see, as suggested by the colour we're using, is that the first part of this is descriptive. It's what Evans showed. The second part is interpretive, because we're saying here, Evans showed this, that the method was successful, and this was significant because. Let's look at another example. Take 30 seconds to read this again. You'll see a similar thing going on. We have a descriptive element, Weng et al. Found something, and then an interpretive element where Bruce argues why these findings were crucial, why they were important. So when we're using this language, this was significant, this was crucial, we're flipping the writing, we're moving it from descriptive to interpretation, the critical component. And there's language we can use to do this. Language we can use to highlight importance, to interpret, to give us a voice. This shows that. This is important. This is vital. This points to. And this language is important for two key reasons. One, it moves your writing from the descriptive to the interpretive. And two, it gives you a stronger writer's voice. It's you talking, it's you giving interpretation. Another element of the lit review is responding with critique. So let's look at another example. As I give you these parts of the paragraph, read through them and look at what's going on. It's a layered approach to writing. The first layer, again, shows us description. It's what Brent found. A second layer reveals some critique going on. And again, we have was limited in its application. This is some sort of deficit critique, showing a limitation of Brent's work. Then we have a third element. And what you can see here is now we're offering a solution. It may have been more illustrative to do X, Y, and Z.
Okay, so I hope you got the idea that I'm trying to bring in, right? So you need to write it in a similar way up there. So you describe the research, you basically critique it, and in case if something could have been done better, right? So remember when we were discussing about this particular, right? So they had mentioned that it was basically over just 5 trading days, right? Making it difficult to analyze. This also makes certain findings prone to certain short term. So I'm basically saying that it might be the reason why it may be leading to a problem up over there, right? There are certain elements which are going to be negative up there, and then I'm basically going to propose what are going to be the solutions to the same, and that is what basically leads to my gap and then further hypothesis and then methodology section up over there, right? So this is what basically we need to do in this case, right? So this is all that we have over here, like for how to go about the literature review, right? If you have any questions, right, so I'll be taking that word art once again, so just hold on to it. Okay, let me go ahead and download this. Let's say chapter number 82. Okay, so if you have any questions, right, so you can always go ahead and connect with me offline as well in campus. You can drop by to my office, right? We can take it off beyond these sessions as well, right? So we can like whatever help that you require and whatever is possible from my side, I'll be always happy to help you guys, right? Okay, let's say this is the article that I have written over here. Let me go ahead and copy and paste it in the word art over here. Okay, so let's import. So this is trying to figure out is the theme matching or not. Yeah.
We need to download word art.
No, you don't need to. It is just a
Online.
website link up over here,
Acha.
wordart.com. So that is what I was saying. So previously people used to do it with the help of like Python or Tableau up over there, right? So people used to use R programming language up there. Now you don't need to do all these because it is very much easily available from this particular document up over there, right? So it is very much easily there. Okay, so there may be certain limitation on how much of words that can basically get into, but again that should basically give you a kind of an idea to it as well. So you import those words, right? You look at then you go ahead and visualize it up over here. You click on visualizing and it will tell you. Now since this is my paper, I will be in a better position to tell you that if this particular visualization basically works perfectly fine, right? And you know that the title was pertaining to algorithmic trading, right? And it should basically reflect upon the three basic key elements, right? So one is algorithmic trading, human traders up over there. It should be basically liquidity, volatility, and price aspect up there, right? So this is what it is doing. So I can say that yes, this word art is basically making sense for me, right? So this gives me that yes, I should go ahead and read this particular paper and let us basically shortlist it for my further review of this particular paper for my literature review segment, right? So this is what we are basically trying to do with the help of word art. Pretty easy to do, right? So you have the link available, right? So I'll be sharing the document which has those links available up over there. Now, apart from these things, right? So there is one more problem which we face as a like researcher is like we have a lot of collection of resources with us, right? Now, how do I basically go ahead and make it a bit more organized, right? If I have to cite something, then how do I basically go ahead and cite it? right? So there is one important like tool up there which is known as Mendeley. So if you go to that Mendeley, right, so this will tell you how you can basically go ahead and cite it. So this Mendeley, so Mendeley is basically going to provide you a place where you can place all the repository of your work up over there. Right? So yeah, so this is how it will look on your screen, and this is a free tool. You can easily go ahead and download it up over there. So you download it, you like copy and paste all your papers up over here. It will automatically try to pick up most of the citations for you. And when you are done with that, right, now what you are going to do, so you're writing something in your document, right? In the document you need to cite those authors, so you can go to your reference section on the Word, and then you can click on edit citations, and then you can basically insert the citations by looking out for the papers which are there in the Mendeley itself. Now the importance of this way is doing that, like whenever you are citing this, it is linking it to your work, and at the same time it will automatically create the bibliography, that is the referencing will be automatically done by this as well, right? So this is something. And a lot of journals have a different kind of citation requirement, right? So for example, some journal may have a citation requirement of, let's say, American APA style 6th edition, right? Someone may have like Chicago style, someone may have IEEE. So it will automatically help you in managing those citation styles based on the requirement of the journal where you are submitting it up over there. So it is a good practice to basically go ahead and make use of this Mendeley as well. So I have used this particular link in the list which I'm going to provide you. You can always go ahead and look at it. Apart from these, I have also provided you a couple of other productivity tools which you can basically look at it. So you can look at that. Those Mendeley is going to be a common for almost all of them. For writing style, you can use LaTeX. So a lot of journals provide you a LaTeX template where you can basically go ahead and put the document, and then you can basically submit the journals in the LaTeX template format up over there, right? You can use for analysis, you can use R, you can use Python, and so on, right? So that is something that can be used up over there. For uh, like finding thesis, we know Shodhganga is one there, right? Journal, a lot of times journal will also ask you for journal classification codes up there, right? Now
Sir,
what
excuse me, sir, for database completely it is related to finance. I hope so.
this one is primarily related to finance, because in HR related or like any other domain, we may not have a very good databases publicly available, right? So
Okay.
in case, like for example, for some of them may be available. So let's say Statistica may be able to provide you something there. Statistica may be able to provide you something on HR or marketing related domains up there, or entrepreneurship related there. Then you may be able to get something from World Economic Forum. They have their own database which is available, and they have made it public up there. World Bank, they publish it both on the money side, and they also publish it on the society side as well. So you may be able to get something from there as well, right?
Sir,
But
I hope from Ministry of Corporate Affairs also we can get some data regarding my topic, right?
yes, you may be able to get data. I'm not sure if you will be able to get data and if that data is going to be reliable. I'm not very sure, and I'm not very confident on
I
it.
mean,
But
data in the sense, not such kind of data, the
yeah,
policies and regulations.
those you will be able to get it. Yeah,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
will be over here. This is completely with respect to the databases, and with Geetam we have access to Thomson Reuters. So anyone who's basically even for HRM related, right? So if you are looking at green HRM practices, right, so where CSR can be a proxy of your green HRM work, and then firm performance, let's say if you are looking at, right, so you should be able to get the data of that from Thomson Reuters as well, right? And this is available at Geetam, so you can go ahead and make use of this up over there, right? Now, another last element that you need to basically look at is that whenever you are trying to submit a paper, right, so they will ask you for a journal classification code up there, right? So that code is basically classified depending upon the subject area that you have, right? So a journal of economics and teaching, right? If you are into international economics, financial economics, health, education, welfare, labor, demographic economics, and so on. If so, you click on these and you will be able to basically get those codes up over there. So below the keywords you should basically, so these are the keywords that you are going to provide, and below the keywords you will provide what are the general classification, the JEL classification that you have got up over there, right? So let me show you one paper which I might have cited. Okay, let's say, okay, let me go ahead and look at this. So this will tell you that how basically people provide you journal citations on the various papers that they basically use. So let's say this is one. Okay. Okay, this one is not using it. So maybe third one. In some cases, it becomes mandatory for you to basically provide those citations up there. I think this one has it. Yeah. Yeah. So this one has it. So you can see that I am providing the keywords up there, and then I'm also citing the GL classification codes up there. Now each of these GL classification codes basically help them categorize that this paper fits into which particular domain, and accordingly they will be able to search certain reviewers, and then they will be allocate those reviewers to your paper up there, or they will be able to send this paper for review to those people up over there, right? So that is where it becomes interesting, and that becomes imperative to know about GL's like classification codes as well. So I have provided that in the link as well. If you need to know it all at one place, there is another one which basically provides you all those codes at one place up over here. Somebody from marketing department, so just search for marketing. Okay, right? So you will be able to find that these are the general classification codes that you can basically go ahead and use it up there, marketing and advertising and so on. So this is where you can basically put it over there, like HRM up over there. Maybe human resource, we may be able to use human capital, so you may be able to use it over here, human capital. So this is where you can basically, these are the some of the classification, JL classification that you can put it across. In this case, human resources, so O15 may be the most prominent one that you need to be looking at, right? So this is again another aspect to it, right? So another thing that you need to basically look at is, like in GitHub you have access to this open grammarly, right? So try to make you install a word related document up over there, right? And this will basically provide you a lot of suggestions how to write over here, right? So it will tell you that if there are any issues up there, and what all modification that you need to bring it in your particular work over here. Let's see. Okay, let me open another one. Yeah. So over here, it will suggest you what all or how can you basically improve upon your writing skills over here, right? It will suggest you how can you paraphrase it, right? How can you basically, so it is order driven. It will be better if you can put a hyphen up over there, right? You can use a fewer non-content words up over there, rewrite the sentence, and it will also suggest how can you basically go ahead and rewrite those sentences up over there as well, right? Let's say if it is a long sentence, right? So it will basically tell you that, okay, this is how you can basically go ahead and change it, right? So rewrite the sentence. So it is missing the subject. So this is how you can basically go ahead and change it. Okay. Split the sentence. If it is a very long sentence, you can basically go ahead and change it accordingly. And this is like if there are too many words available, so you can start making these changes, and you will be able to work on it up over there, right? So let's say this is the one that I am taking, right? So too many words up over there, too many articles have been used, the, for, it, has, and so on. Can I write it in a different way, right? So you start revising it, and it will tell you that, okay, yes, you have reached to a good stage up there. If there is a spelling mistake, it is also going to help you with those spelling mistakes up there. But again, it may not be 100% accurate, but one tool that you can always keep in your armor in order to basically rectify the mistakes that you might have come up with, right? So let's say this is one sentence up over here. This is where you will say that you sentence may be unclear or hard to follow. And remember, when we are sending it for publication to outside India journals, in those cases, those people are very critical about our English, the way we write English up over there. We think in our the local dialect, right? And we try to put it across in the same local dialect in the form of English as well. It may be grammatically correct, right? There is nothing wrong with it, but maybe there is a more efficient way of putting it across. Maybe we can make it a bit concise using that. So this Grammarly is another tool that you can use for making your literature review a bit more concise and bit more apt for doing that part, right? So these are the tools that we have got, right? And you should be able to make use of.
Sir, is it Grammarly is a freeware, sir?
No, it is a paid one, but at Geetham you have access to it. Geetham, with Geetham login ID, you can install it on your devices up there.
They sent a mail to every scholar, sir. You check
Right.
your inbox
Yes.
once.
Yes, you will be able to get that. Yeah. Right. So I'll be sharing this document. If there is anything else that I might have missed out, so you can always reach out to me. I will be happy to clarify a bit more on the same as well. Right. So with this, I can like end the session from my side. Any questions that you have, any feedback that you have, do let me know. We'll try to bring it like either on a personal basis, or maybe we can have another session at some point of time, and we'll try to work on it. Okay. So thank you for bearing with me without a break for the last 3 or 15 minutes almost. Right. Okay. Any questions that you have, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really happy to you with us, sir. Most of the doubts are got cleared. Still, if we have any doubts, definitely we'll reach you.
Sure, sure.
Thank you so much. You have given some sort of clarity to my topic. Thank you so much.
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Yeah. Have a
Thank you,
nice
sir.
weekend ahead. Yeah. All
Thank
the
you, sir.
best for your
Thank you,
thesis
sir.
work. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.